Chapter 2018. At this moment, familiar footsteps came from outside. Yuantao was shocked. The elder in charge of guarding the door had already spoken. "Greetings, master. Jun Jiuqing. Why is he here all of a sudden?" Yuantao frowned and immediately turned around to give the man in black a look. The figure of the black-clothed person flashed and disappeared on the spot. Jun Jiuqing's voice was as casual as ever. "I haven't been here for a few days and missed you. I thought I'd drop by to take a look." At this moment, he had already walked to the door and looked inside. "How's the situation?" The elder hurriedly said. "Everything is normal. It's just that master seems to be in a bad mood today." Jun Jiuqing smiled. "Is that so? All the more reason to go in and take a look." With that, he pushed the door open and entered. The room was very quiet, and there was a faint bitter medicinal fragrance. Although Jun Jiuqing hadn't been here for a few days, he had always sent people to deliver medicine. He walked in and saw Yuantao and the mess on the floor. Jun Jiuqing raised his eyebrows. "You're really angry. What's wrong? Are the servants not serving you well enough?" Yuantao sneered in his heart. "Serve?" During this period he had been locked up here like a prisoner. How could anyone serve him? It was more like surveillance. Yuantao looked up and asked coldly. "What are you doing here today? I've already told you everything that needs to be said the other day." His face was full of annoyance and he was just short of chasing him away. Jun Jiuqing didn't care and smiled faintly. "Nothing. I heard that you had a guest, so I thought I'd come to take a look." Yuantao's heart thumped hard. However, he was an old fox after all. He didn't show any guilt on his face. Instead, he laughed sarcastically. "What did you say? Guest? I don't have anyone here other than you." "Guest, where did you come from?" Jun Jiuqing looked around. The air in the room seemed to have frozen. "Patriarch, why do you have to do this?" After a long while, Jun Jiuqing finally spoke. "Thanks to your grace, I was able to become the young lord and ascend to the position of patriarch. If you continue to stay here like this, I guarantee that you will be able to spend the rest of your days in peace. Unfortunately, you don't seem to care about this." Yuantao said coldly. "I don't know what you're talking about. For the past few days, I've been wondering how you managed to get in touch with that person." Jun Jiuqing suddenly interrupted his words, and there was a strange smile on his devilishly handsome face. "Although Family Yi's family business is big, you're dealing with them as an individual. The rest of the family Yi knew nothing about this. Under such circumstances, what did you use to persuade the other party to join hands with you?" Yuantao's throat went dry as he stared at Jun Jiuqing. "What are you trying to say?" Jun Jiuqing smiled and shook his head. "You should know best what I'm trying to say. For the past few days I've been thinking about it day and night and I finally remembered something." He took a step forward. Yuantao didn't know why, but his legs suddenly went weak and he unconsciously took a step back. The two confronted each other. Jun Jiuqing's aura easily crushed Yuantao. Yuantao secretly regretted it. This retreat was a sign of guilt. Jun Jiuqing continued. "I remember that a few years ago when Rongxiu went to the Black Demon Cave, that person was at a critical juncture of his cultivation and had almost no combat power. With Rongxiu's temperament, if he could completely kill the other party, he would definitely not leave the slightest chance of survival. But that time, the Black Demon Cave actually escaped and found another place to go. This meant that although Rongxiu caused serious damage to the Black Demon Cave that time, he did not really threaten the other party's foundation." With every word Jun Jiuqing said, Yuantao felt more pressure in his heart. Seeing that he was silent, Jun Jiuqing asked softly. "Don't you think someone helped you?" Bang! Yuantao took a step back and accidentally knocked over the chair behind him. The high-quality rosewood chair fell to the ground with a dull thud. "Master, what's wrong?" The elder outside the door heard the sound and quickly knocked on the door to inquire. Jun Jiuqing said lightly, "It's nothing. You don't have to come in." "Yes." The elder was also a smart person. When he heard this, he immediately responded and obediently continued to guard the door. The room fell into a short period of dead silence. "It seems that what I said was true?" Jun Jiuqing laughed. Although it was a question, his tone was very certain. "I didn't." Yuantao opened his mouth and wanted to deny it, but Jun Jiuqing's words made him feel as if he had fallen into an ice cave. "Don't you find it strange that after so long, no one has come to receive you? Even the news you sent out was not responded to?" Yuantao suddenly felt a chill in his heart, causing his whole body to turn cold. You. He widened his eyes and looked at Jun Jiuqing in disbelief. Jun Jiuqing knew. I heard that those were the talents that you carefully nurtured for several years and spent a lot of time and effort on. What a pity. Yi Wentao's heart was in a perilous situation. Jun Jiuqing suddenly tilted his head and looked at the void behind Yi Wentao. Then, with a flick of his wrist, a vigorous force transformed into a long whip and suddenly flew out. Smack. The void was forcefully cut open, and the man in black who had just been hiding was directly pulled out. His neck was tightly bound by the long whip, and he could not break free. Seeing this, Yi Wentao's usual calm facade could no longer be maintained. You knew all along. Jun Jiuqing did not say anything and exerted force. Crack. The crisp sound of bones cracking was heard. Finally, the man in black's neck tilted and he stopped breathing. He was not weak, but Jun Jiuqing struck first and did not give him any chance to breathe. That was why he died. The man in black lay on the ground and thick red blood slowly flowed out from under his body. The thick smell of blood quickly spread out. Yi Wentao's lips trembled and his face was pale. At this point, what was there to not understand? It's not that I knew all along. Jun Jiuqing looked up and glanced at Yi Wentao. You can't hide it, so isn't it normal for others to know? Previously he only had his suspicions and did not have any evidence. However, he knew that Yi Wentao would definitely not let the matter rest, so during this period of time, he had been sending people to secretly keep an eye on him. Sure enough, he found something. There was no such thing as an airtight wall in the world. Besides, Jun Jiuqing was already prepared and was waiting for him to walk into the trap. Yi Wentao trembled all over and there seemed to be a fire burning in his chest, but his body was still cold to the bone. He knew that this time he was really finished. How do you know so much? About Black Demon Cave, about that person, about everything. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 2019. At first he hadn't noticed, but now he remembered that Jun Jiuqing's words were very strange. Not many people knew that Rong Xiu had gone to the Black Demon Cave. Most people in the entire Divine Ruins world thought that the Black Demon Cave had suddenly chosen to hide from the world and disappeared without a trace. There were very few people who knew what had happened at that time. Not only did Jun Jiuqing know, but he also knew very well. He even knew that the person in the Black Demon Cave was at a critical moment and couldn't make a move. This matter was extremely confidential, and Jun Jiuqing had nothing to do with it. How did he know so much? Yi Wentao really couldn't figure it out. He looked at Jun Jiuqing with a complicated expression. Only now did he realize that he didn't know much about Jun Jiuqing. This person was extremely dangerous. Jun Jiuqing didn't answer his question. He knew a lot of things, so why should he tell Yi Wentao, who was already crippled? It seems that I really overestimated you. Jun Jiuqing smiled faintly. After so many years, it's really a miracle that Family E hasn't been implicated by you. Don't worry, Family E is definitely several times better in my hands than in yours. In the future, you should continue to rest here quietly. With that, he turned and left. It seemed that he didn't want to say so much to Yi Wentao. Obviously, he came this time to deal with the black-clothed man, and also to cut off Yi Wentao's last path of retreat. Yi Wentao's eyes were bloodshot. Stop right there. He suddenly let out a roar. Jun Jiuqing stopped in his tracks and looked back. Boom. A cluster of green flames suddenly burst out from Yi Wentao's body. Jun Jiuqing's pupils shrank. Yi Wentao was going to self-destruct. He was crazy. Yi Wentao was indeed crazy. The black-clothed man's death and Jun Jiuqing's words were the last straw that broke the camel's back. He thought that he still had a chance to turn the tables, but now, everything was in vain. He didn't need to think about it to know what kind of life he would live in the future. Like a prisoner, extremely lowly, trapped in this place, never seeing the light of day. Until he died. Yi Wentao's life was proud and honorable. How could he bear such an ending? Since all hope was gone, he might as well die with Jun Jiuqing. Even though Yi Wentao was crippled now, he was still a top-rate revered god in the past. If he forcibly self-destruct, the consequences. At such a close distance, even if Jun Jiuqing didn't die, he would be crippled. Jun Jiuqing, however, the flames on Yi Wentao's body were spreading too quickly. He had already made up his mind to die, so he didn't hold back at all as he madly urged the origin power in his body to burn. A terrifying aura was rapidly gathering. Jun Jiuqing knew that something was wrong. He made a prompt decision and turned to run. Bang! He directly forced open the door. Master, what's going on? The elder guarding the door was shocked. He was about to ask when he saw a shadow flash before him. Before he could finish, a scorching and terrifying aura suddenly rushed out of the room. A deep sense of fear welled up in his heart, and he subconsciously looked inside. Iwentao had become a burning man. The accumulated power in every inch of his body was burning crazily. After all, he used to be a powerful god. The power in his body was extremely shocking. The elder immediately sensed the danger. Iwentao was going to self-destruct. Without a second thought, he immediately retreated. At this moment, he didn't have time to think about what had happened inside to make Iwentao make such a choice. There was only one thought in his mind: run. However, before he could run too far, an earth-shattering explosion suddenly came from behind him. A terrifying wave of chi gushed forth like a surging river, engulfing everything. Green flames covered the sky and earth. The elder was hit by this terrifying explosive force. His body flew out and was torn into pieces in midair. Then he was swallowed by the green flames that were spreading crazily. From life to death, everything happened in the blink of an eye. Although Jun Jiuqing's reaction was extremely fast and he managed to escape further away, he was still unavoidably affected by this power. His chest shook and he spat out blood. At this moment, his internal organs felt as if they had been crushed by this power and were about to explode. His vision turned black and he fainted. This commotion quickly spread. The entire family finally fell into chaos. Chu Luiyue and the others, who were far away in the Divine Ruins world, did not know what happened to the family Yi. However, Mo Shiqian had always been in contact with Iwentao. In the midst of the chaotic battle, his expression suddenly froze. He gritted his teeth and said hatefully, "Useless thing." Rongxiu heard this. He narrowed his eyes slightly and then realized what had happened. His thin lips curled up slightly. It seems that the winner of the family E has been decided. You. Mo Shiqian looked up suddenly. You did it? Rongxiu smiled faintly. There can't be two tigers on one mountain. Do you still need me to do such a thing personally? If he didn't do anything, the family E would turn the world upside down. After all, Iwentao and Jun Jiuqing were not easy to deal with. Judging from Mo Shiqian's reaction, Jun Jiuqing should have won. This was the same result he had expected. Mo Shiqian was furious. What he hated the most was Rongxiu's always calm and collected appearance. It was as if nothing in the world could disturb his mind, and no one could gain the slightest advantage from him. No matter what kind of trouble he encountered, he always seemed to be victorious. What right did he have? Mo Shiqian was unconvinced and indignant. He clenched his fists and gritted his teeth. After the fight just now, his body was already riddled with injuries and bloodstains. However, Rongxiu was much stronger than him. Although he was also injured and stained with messy blood, most of it was not his own blood. A few years ago he was at a critical juncture of cultivation, so he could not fight Rongxiu head-on. He thought that after such a long time he could finally surpass Rongxiu. Who knew, things did not go as he wished. Yes, he was cultivating, but Rongxiu's strength was also increasing. If this went on, he would be the one to lose in the end. One had to know that Rongxiu had not summoned his divine body yet. Moreover, he also had two divine bodies. On the other hand, the two divine bodies that he had painstakingly cultivated were now entangled by Chu Luiyue and Chang Wanzhou. Chang Wanzhou seemed to be the weakest, but his endurance was extremely astonishing. It had been so long, but his speed and movement technique had not weakened at all. Needless to say, Chu Luiyue was even more so. Just the flowing clouds flying diagram alone was enough to give him a headache. Not to mention, she had the help of Dumpling, who had already opened the fifth meridian. Moreover, she still had a trump card that she had not revealed. This battle was most likely going to be very dangerous. Mo Shiqian thought quickly and made a decision. This could not go on. Blood Heaven Realm. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 2020. Following his roar, a copper mirror suddenly appeared in front of him. This bronze mirror was very similar to the one that Hongen had taken out before, but it was also different. The edge of this bronze mirror was engraved with mysterious runes. In the mirror, a sea of blood was surging. A fishy, sweet and dense smell of blood suffused out from within, and it was mixed with the smell of decay, causing one to feel nauseous. Chu Luiyue's expression froze. She had seen this bronze mirror before. The previous few times, Mo Shiqian had not revealed his true appearance, and this bronze mirror had always appeared. At this moment, the Mo Shiqian, in front of her, suddenly retreated. On the other side, the divine body that had been fighting with Chang Wanzhou for a long time also retreated without hesitation. The three figures gathered and stood in one place. Then, the two divine bodies transformed into a cloud of black mist again and surged into the Blood Heaven realm. Emo Shurchin stood in front of the Blood Heaven realm with his hands crossed and his eyes closed. Then, a distant and heavy pressure suddenly spread out from the Blood Heaven realm. The void trembled and distorted. Alarm bells rang in Chu Yue's mind. She didn't even need to think before she shouted, "Dumpling!" Dumpling reacted extremely quickly. Its huge reddish-gold wings flapped and immediately rose into the air. Chang Wanzhou's eyes sharpened as he slashed down the cloud sky copper sword. In an instant, sparks flew everywhere and several silver-white Tianlei forces surged out. In the blink of an eye, a barrier condensed in front of him. A black flame flashed in Rongxiu's eyes, but it disappeared in an instant. His palm moved slightly as if he was about to move, but after a moment of hesitation, he quietly retracted it and only tapped the tip of his foot and retreated. Almost at the same time. Boom! A loud sound was heard. In the Blood Heaven realm, a scarlet sea of blood surged violently. As the waves continued to rise and fall, a terrifying power surged out from within. The golden enchantment finally broke apart at this moment. In an instant, countless golden sparks scattered in all directions, almost illuminating half of the sky. "It's out." When the people who were waiting outside heard this, their spirits were lifted. Countless pairs of eyes looked towards the center. Amidst the flashing lights, the bronze mirror suspended in midair immediately attracted everyone's attention. Everyone from the Black Demon Cave was overjoyed. Sect leader is indeed powerful. They knew very well that this was the sect leader's trump card. Sure enough, as soon as it was summoned, it tore apart Rongxiu's barrier. Suddenly, a low voice came from the crowd. "Why is there so much blood on Sect Master's body?" The crowd, which was still boiling with excitement, fell silent for a moment. Just now, when the barrier was broken, they were too excited and didn't notice it. When she heard this, she took a closer look and saw that there was more blood on Emo Shurchin's body than the other three. Although his body was still shrouded in a layer of black mist, it had become much thinner after a series of fierce battles. Clearly, he had used up a lot of energy just now. The Blood Heavenly Realm is the Sect Master's trump card. Since he's using it now, he'll definitely win. After a moment, someone said loudly. This was the Black Demon Cave's territory. There was no reason for these three to be so presumptuous. There was a reason for the previous incident, but this time, the same thing would never happen again. Just as everyone was about to besiege, Emo Shurchin suddenly said, "Everyone from the Black Demon Cave, listen up. Get into formation." No one dared to disobey the order. Chu Yue's heart sank. Without the protection of Rongxiu's barrier, the three of them were immediately in a dangerous situation. There were so many cultivators from the Black Demon Cave here. If they all attacked together, she was afraid. Thinking of this, she quickly turned her head to take a look. However, what she saw stunned her on the spot. The people from the Black Demon Cave did not go forward to attack. Instead, they spread out. They stood neatly and all of them did the same action. Their arms were crossed in front of their chests, their fists clenched and their heads lowered slightly. Chu Liyue frowned. Why did they look more like they were performing some kind of ritual? As soon as this thought flashed through her mind, she saw spots of light appear one after another above everyone's heads. The spots of light were only the size of a fist and were not dazzling. They were faint blood red. It looked like a blood moon. Chu Liyue suddenly remembered the totem of the Black Demon Sword sect. Two swords cupping the moon. Moreover, it was indeed a blood moon. However, for some reason this scene was inexplicably familiar. "People of the Black Demon Cave, please protect us." Suddenly, Emo Shurchin opened his mouth and said something in a low voice. He stood in front of the Blood Heaven mirror, facing the blood-red mirror. This voice was filled with admiration and expectation, as if he was summoning something. Chu Liyue had never seen such a situation before and was puzzled for a moment. Emo Shurchin was seeking help? He's waiting for someone. Rongxiu's figure moved and he came to her side as he spoke softly. Chu Liyue glanced at him. Waiting for who? Rongxiu raised his sword-like eyebrows slightly and did not answer. Chu Liyue slowly clenched her fists. In fact, the answer was not difficult to guess. At this time, of course, Emo Shurchin was waiting for someone who could help them. However, who could it be? Suddenly, a figure slowly emerged from the sea of blood in the Blood Heaven mirror. Following this, an ancient voice could be heard. What's the matter? This voice seemed to come from a distant time and space, carrying an astonishing pressure. As soon as the voice fell, the surrounding space seemed to tremble. Emo Shurchin bowed and said, "I had no choice but to disturb you. I really didn't want to." However, I'm in trouble this time. Please help me. He raised his hand and pointed at Chu Luiyue. Please, kill the 3 people from Shangguanyu. Between heaven and earth there was silence. Chu Luiyue suddenly approached Rong Xiu and whispered, Why do I feel this voice is so familiar? Before she finished speaking, the voice sounded surprised and happy. Little girl, users of mobile phones, please browse and read. A better reading experience came from Love Network. Chapter 2021. Chu Luiyue was taken aback. This voice. Senior Diwu? She spoke with some uncertainty. The figure in the blood heaven realm gradually lost its blood-red color, revealing its original appearance. His face was kind and he looked like an immortal. It was Diwu Zhangze, whom she hadn't seen for a long time. At this moment, those weathered eyes were looking at Chu Luiyue with joy and longing. Come and let this old man take a look. Mo Shiqin, who was originally full of confidence, was shocked. The people who were standing in the array were also stunned. What did he say? What did he just shout? It was obvious who he was shouting at. Even a fool could tell. As Senior Mo Shiqin was so shocked that his heart was trembling. He had spent so much effort to invite this person here to deal with Rong Xiu and Chu Luiyue. Why did the situation seem to be developing in an uncontrollable direction now? Diwu Zhangze frowned impatiently and waved his hand. Hey Mo Shiqin, right? Get out of the way first. Don't block my from coming over. As he spoke, he tilted his head and shouted at Chu Luiyue with a smile. Girl, come over. Mo Shiqin's body stiffened, and his mind went blank for a moment. For a moment, he almost suspected that he had heard wrongly. But in the blood heaven realm, Diwu Zhangze's eager and happy smile at Chu Luiyue was enough to explain everything. Chu Luiyue hesitated for a moment, but still chose to go forward. With Diwu Zhangze here, no one dared to act rashly. She walked all the way to the front smoothly and bowed respectfully and obediently. Greet Senior Diwu. Diwu Zhangze looked at her and sighed. I haven't seen you for a while. Has really become more and more beautiful. The corner of Chu Luiyue's mouth twitched. She slowly raised her hand and took off the mask on her face. Senior Diwu, you can say this later. She had that ordinary face of hers, yet he could still praise her like that. Diwu Zhangze waved his hand. Are you, has always been the most beautiful girl in the world. Who would dare to question him? His words were filled with arrogance and pride. His words caused many people to look at Chu Luiyue. The woman wore an ordinary crimson dress, and her fine black hair fluttered in the wind. The face under the mask was as white as snow, with skin of ice and bones of jade. Her eyebrows were like distant mountains and her eyes were like autumn waters. In particular, the free and easy feeling between her brows added to her elegance. Many people's eyes flashed with surprise. The legendary Shangguanyu, the princess of the Tianling dynasty, was like a legend. She was indeed the most beautiful woman in the world. Chu Luiyue laughed, his eyes curved into crescents. Don't tease me. Diwu Zhangze looked at her and suddenly asked, You've cultivated a divine body? Chu Luiyue was still wearing that layer of gorgeous soft armor, which shone with a piercingly cold and noble light under the sunlight. She nodded slightly. I just cultivated it not long ago. Diwu Zhangze was overjoyed. Is indeed amazing. He thought it would take some time, but he didn't expect it to be so fast. Sure enough, this girl's talent and opportunities were far beyond ordinary people's. How have you been? Chu Luiyue asked. I wanted to go back and take a look, but I couldn't find the time. I didn't expect to meet you here today. Her lips curved slightly and she said softly, What a coincidence. There was a moment of dead silence. Diwu Zhangze touched his nose awkwardly. Mo Shiqin's blood had already coagulated, and his limbs were numb. He spent a lot of effort to suppress the surging emotions in his heart. Senior Diwu, you know Shangguanyu? This sentence was simply nonsense. Anyone could tell that not only did they know each other, but they also had a close relationship. Otherwise, how could they call each other so intimately? But at this moment, Mo Shiqin almost couldn't think of this. He realized that the external aid he invited might have become the enemy's helper. Diwu Zhangze looked at Mo Shiqin. The smile on his face faded, and there was a hint of coldness in his eyes. This was a far cry from the kind and warm attitude he had when facing Chu Luiyue just now. That's right. You, can be considered half a disciple of mine. What? You invited this old man here today just to kill her? Mo Shiqin was shocked and his heart sank. Half a disciple. This kind of relationship was indeed incomparable to ordinary people. In his impression, this person had never taken in a disciple before. How could Chu Luiyue? Mo Shiqian's heart was in a mess. Inviting a master to kill his disciple, what a joke. Chu Luiyue blinked. Half a master. Actually, this was a little exaggerated. When she was in the Red Moon Desert, she spent most of her time with Dabao. And the things she learned there, such as various prescriptions and Shen formations, were basically all learned from Dabao. But at this time, this kind of explanation was obviously more convincing. Diwu Zhangzi secretly glanced at Chu Luiyue. Seeing that her eyes were bright and she had no intention of refuting, he was immediately in a good mood. Taking advantage of Dabao's absence, it was great to be Yu Er's master for a period of time. Mo Shiqian opened his mouth but couldn't say anything. Master and disciple. It's a long story. Diwu Zhangzi had already looked at Chu Luiyue and said helplessly and guiltily. In the early years I had some dealings with the sect master of the Black Demon Cave, but that's all in the past. If this girl knew that he had received many offerings from the Black Demon Cave back then, he was afraid. Anyway, I have no direct relationship with them now. The reason why I came today is that there is a trace of my aura in the Blood Heaven realm. This is also left behind from back then. Diwu Zhangzi rubbed his temples in annoyance. In fact, he indeed didn't have any dealings with the Black Demon Cave. It was just that the relationship wasn't completely severed back then, which gave Mo Shiqian a chance. If he had known the situation here would be like this, he wouldn't have come no matter what. He was almost misunderstood by you. Diwu Zhangzi felt wronged. He had been trapped in the Red Moon Desert for so long, what else could he do? Everyone was speechless when they heard this. Diwu Zhangzi's attitude couldn't be more obvious when he sided with Chu Luiyue. Even if he was invited by Mo Shiqian. At this time he was obviously still on Chu Luiyue's side. How could they fight? Mo Shiqian clenched his fists, and the waves in his heart couldn't calm down for a long time. He never thought that things would develop like this in the end. Diwu Zhangzi was actually Chu Luiyue's backer. Why hadn't he heard of it before? Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 2022. Diwu Zhangzi was a powerful backer that the Black Demon Cave's ancestral sect leader had latched onto thousands of years ago. For a period of time, Diwu Zhangzi did indeed have a good relationship with the Black Demon Cave. Of course, this good referred to the fact that he felt that the things sent by the Black Demon Cave were good and to his liking. But, in all honesty, ever since he was trapped in the Red Moon Desert, he had never received any benefits from them. Diwu Zhangzi felt wronged, but how could Mo Shiqian not have mixed feelings? This Blood Heaven realm was passed down by the Black Demon Cave sect leaders. It was a symbol of status and also a great trump card. From the day he became the sect leader, he knew that the aura of a powerful being was sealed inside. As long as he joined forces with the people of the Black Demon Cave, he could summon him. But such an opportunity only came once. So over the years, the sect leader of the Black Demon Cave cherished this opportunity very much and did not dare to use it easily. Only when the entire Black Demon Cave was in a life-and-death crisis could they use this trump card. If Chu Luiyue and Rong Xiu hadn't appeared together today and Mo Shiqian still didn't have the momentum to win after a long battle, he wouldn't have chosen to invite this person over. Mo Shiqian's idea was very simple. Seize the opportunity to eliminate these people once and for all. This way it wouldn't be a waste of this one and only great opportunity. But who knew that things would turn out like this? Even if the Black Demon Cave could barely establish a relationship with this person, how could it compare to their master-disciple relationship? Everyone in the Black Demon Cave looked at Mo Shiqian in shock and helplessness. Mo Shiqian clenched his fists, and the flames in his chest seemed to be about to burst. I see. Chu Luiyue said with a smile. In that case there really was a misunderstanding. Senior, you don't know. When I didn't know it was you just now, I really thought I was going to die here today. Bah? What do you mean die? Don't talk nonsense. Although he knew that she was joking, Diwu Zhangzi couldn't bear to hear her say such things. After all, he knew that this girl had really died once. And at that time she didn't even have any memories. She had forgotten all about them. Thinking of that time, Diwu Zhangzi's heart ached. Wait a minute. That time, was it because the Black Demon Cave attacked her? Diwu Zhangzi looked at Mo Shiqian slowly. A chill instantly enveloped Mo Shiqian. His heart skipped a beat. Among other things, his intuition was very accurate in this regard. Diwu Zhangzi was looking at him like, oh, that's right. Little Yu, was he the one who attacked you a few years ago? Diwu Zhangzi asked slowly. Chu Luiyue blinked. You still remember? Speaking of which, it was a long time ago. I remember, At that time, Sect Master Mo seemed to want to snatch something from me. She paused and the smile on her lips deepened. A few years have passed, but Sect Master Mo is still very persistent about this matter. Not long ago the family E and the Nan family joined forces and headed to Peach Blossom Dock to surround and intercept us. What nonsense are you talking about? Mo Shurchin shouted, the veins on his forehead bulging. Although Chu Luiyue was telling the truth, how could he admit it in front of Diwu Zhangze at this time? Wasn't this purely attracting hatred? Diwu Zhangze was already very unhappy that he invited him over to kill her. If he knew that he had used so many methods previously, Diwu Zhangze would probably want to kill him. How is it nonsense? Chu Luiyue looked surprised. Didn't Sect Master Mo help transfer Nan Yi's Yuan Meridian to her brother? It's also because of this that Nan Yifan blamed Nan Yi's death on me and hates me to the core. And Family E, why do you think they suddenly had the idea of snatching Peach Blossom Dock? Moreover, they acted together with the Nan family. This is too much of a coincidence. What do you think? Chu Luiyue's words were very clear and logical. Even those who didn't know much about these matters could sense that something was amiss when they heard this. Obviously, someone was secretly instigating and sowing discord. And who this person was? It was even more obvious. Mo Shurchin clenched his fists tightly and looked at Chu Luiyue as if he wanted to tear him apart. Family? Nan family? Little girl, they must have eaten a bear's heart and leopard's guts to dare to make a move on you. A trace of shock flashed across Diwu Zhangze's face, and he instinctively glanced at Rong Xiu. Rong Xiu moved and walked forward with a faint smile. Driven by benefits, those people are naturally capable of doing anything. At this time he had also removed the disguise on his face. There was a faint smile on his handsome and devilish face. Even if he was dressed in extremely simple and ordinary clothes, it couldn't hide his peerless beauty. When the two of them stood together, the surrounding scenery immediately paled in comparison. Even if they didn't do anything, it would always make people involuntarily look over. His features were picturesque and his charm was unparalleled. That's the princess's husband? The legendary holy son of the Yuntian Tower? He Ziji looked at this scene in a daze and muttered in a low voice. Although they hadn't been to the Divine Ruins world, rumors about these two people had already spread among many cultivators in the past few months. In fact, this news was first spread by the people of the Black Demon Cave. The main purpose of doing this was to attract those genius cultivators to Cloud State City to participate in their trial. They didn't expect that Chu Luiyue and Rong Xiu would actually appear here directly. When they thought of how they had interacted with these two for so long and even owed them a favor, he Ziji and his sister couldn't help but look at each other and see the shock and disbelief in each other's eyes. No wonder she's so strong, he Xilan subconsciously said in a low voice. To think that they were talking about the princess in front of those two, but they didn't expect that the real princess was right in front of them. Seeing that Diwu Zhangze was still angry, Chu Luiyue smiled and comforted him. However, Senior Diwu, you don't have to worry too much. Those troubles have been resolved. Nan Yifan is already dead. As for Yi Wentao, he's also dead. If I'm not wrong, it should have happened just now. Rong Xiu added. Chu Luiyue raised his eyebrows slightly and glanced at him. Since Rong Xiu said so, it should be close to the truth. It seemed that Yi Wentao's life after returning wasn't easy. He even died in such a short time. Jun Jiuqing still had some tricks up his sleeve. Chu Luiyue thought to himself. To be able to ascend to the position of Family Yi's head with a different surname was not simple. Now that Yi Wentao was dead, the entire Family Yi was in his hands. Hearing this, Diwu Zhangze finally calmed down a little. These days, any dog dared to touch their Yu, did they really think that they couldn't support Yu, just because they were trapped in the Red Moon Desert? His gaze was cold as he asked word by word. Mo Shurchin, what do you want to steal from Yu, Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 2023. This question was low, cold, and oppressive. Every word was like a mountain that weighed heavily on Mo Shurchin's heart. What did he want? Of course, it was the thing in Chu Luiyue's body, but he couldn't say this out loud. The scene fell into a stalemate and was deathly silent. The air seemed to have solidified. Everyone held their breaths and waited. At this moment, even breathing seemed wrong. It's all a misunderstanding. Finally, Mo Shurchin spoke slowly. Every word seemed to be spat out through gritted teeth. Previously, Shurchin didn't know that Shangguan Yu had such a relationship with you. I hope Senior can forgive me for offending you. He lowered his head and compromised. The people from Black Demon Cave were shocked at first, Then they looked dejected and desperate. Even the sect master said so. That made sense. They had spent so much effort to invite foreign aid, but in the end they were supporting the other party. Then how could this match go on? There was probably nothing more embarrassing than this misunderstanding? I don't think so. Diwu Zhangze interrupted him and sneered. Just now this old man heard it clearly. You wanted to kill you and the others. Although this old man is old, I haven't reached the stage of being blind and deaf. Even if it's really a misunderstanding, can I make a mistake a few years ago and make another mistake now? Mo Shiqin closed his eyes and took a deep breath to suppress the surging emotions in his heart. It's a long story. I can't explain it to you in a short time. I have a lot of time. If you have anything to say, just say it. If I can resolve the misunderstanding between you two, I'll have done a good deed, right? Diwu Zhangze laughed. But in Mo Shiqin's ears, this laugh was undoubtedly the greatest mockery. He gritted his teeth so hard that they almost broke. There was really no way to clean up this situation now. Explain? There was no explanation at all. He was the one who did those things. How could he explain it clearly? Mo Shiqin never thought that Chu Luiyue had such a backer. He lowered his head slightly and didn't say a word. Seeing his reaction, what else could Diwu Zhangze doubt? Mo Shiqin, you. Before she could finish her sentence, Mo Shiqin suddenly moved. He turned his fist into a palm and slammed it toward the blood heaven mirror in front of him. Since the person he invited wasn't a helper, then, there was no need for him to be so respectful. The thick black mist instantly shrouded the blood heaven realm. Diwu Zhangze shouted angrily. Mo Shiqin. How dare you? He wanted to destroy the blood heaven realm. It contained Diwu Zhangze's aura. If the blood heaven realm was destroyed, Diwu Zhangze would also be affected. Moreover, without the blood heaven mirror, he couldn't do anything. Since Senior doesn't intend to help, then don't blame us for being impolite. Before he finished his words, Mo Shiqin had already slapped the center of the blood heaven realm. Sect leader. When Do Min and the others saw this, they were all shocked and cried out in surprise. They all knew that blood heaven realm was closely related to Mo Shiqin. Most of his cultivation relied on this item. If he was injured, he could only recover quickly by relying on the blood heaven realm. Once the blood heaven realm was destroyed, he would also be greatly affected. But now that things had come to this, he had no other choice. Crack. A crisp cracking sound was heard. A crack quickly spread on the blood heaven realm. Almost at the same time as the blood heaven realm shattered, Mo Shiqin's body shook and he spat out a mouthful of blood. The aura around his body also instantly became dispirited. But he didn't stop attacking. As long as the blood heaven realm was destroyed, the only way for Diwu Zhangze to come would be cut off. If he didn't come, Mo Shiqin and the entire Black Demon Cave might still have a chance to survive. Sensing Mo Shiqin's thoughts, Diwu Zhangze snorted coldly and blood energy filled the air. A terrifying pressure suddenly surged out from it. Mo Shiqin's heart sank. Before he could react, he was blown away by the violent air wave. Chu Luiyue and Rong Xiu were standing not far away and were about to be affected. However, just as the power was about to engulf them, a figure suddenly broke out of the blood heaven realm. Boom! The blood heaven realm completely shattered. However, that figure stood in front of them and easily blocked the violent energy that was sweeping towards them. Everyone turned to look at that figure. It was Diwu Zhangze. But at this time, his figure was a translucent phantom. And this was the aura he had stored in the blood heaven realm. Mo Shiqin looked at the scene in front of him in shock and disbelief. How could this be? When the blood heaven realm shattered, your aura should also dissipate. He didn't finish his sentence, but everyone present understood what he meant. Diwu Zhangze first turned around and carefully looked at Chu Luiyue. I came out in a hurry just now. Did I hurt you? He asked with concern and nervousness. Chu Luiyue couldn't help but laugh. Don't worry, I'm fine. Not to mention that with her current strength she could perfectly avoid the attack. Even if it was too late, there was still Rong Xiu in him. The two of them stood in front of her and protected her tightly. It would be strange if she was still injured. Diwu Zhangze was relieved after making sure that she wasn't affected. That's good, that's good. On the one hand, he felt sorry for you, on the other hand, if De Bao and Lan Xiao found out that he didn't protect you, well, Hiske. Diwu Zhangze didn't know if he could still survive in the Red Moon Desert. He let out a long sigh of relief and looked at Mo Shiqin. Mo Shiqin met those old and cold eyes, and his heart suddenly trembled. You're right. Without the blood heaven realm, I can't come over. Diwu Zhangze stroked his beard. But who told you that my aura would be annihilated if the blood heaven realm shattered? Mo Shurqian opened his mouth but didn't make a sound. He thought so because this was tacitly agreed by the Black Demon Cave sect masters, who knew that after the blood heaven realm shattered, not only did the aura not dissipate, but it even appeared. Suddenly Diwu Zhangzi patted his head. Oh, I remember now. This should be what Mo Yao said back then. Mo Yao was the first sect master of the Black Demon Cave and the forger of the Blood Heaven Realm. He told you that you can summon me with the Blood Heaven Realm, and if you destroy it you can also cut off my way of life, right? Diwu Zhangzi looked at him sympathetically. Silly child, I lied to him back then. Why did you all believe it? Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 2024. Mo Shurqian felt as if he had been struck by lightning. Even when he knew that Diwu Zhangzi was Chu Liyue's half-master, he had never been so desperate. Fake? All of this was fake? This was the highest-level secret of the Black Demon Cave, which had been passed down for thousands of years. All the previous sect masters had believed in it and kept it strictly. But it turned out that it had been a complete lie from the beginning? Mo Shurqian's blood and qi surged, and his aura showed signs of rebellion. The strong smell of blood between his lips and teeth kept surging, almost suffocating him. His mind buzzed and seemed to be blank. Even everything in front of him seemed to be distorted and became illusory. Diwu Zhangzi's voice kept coming into his ears. To me, the Blood Heavenly Realm is nothing more than a place for this remnant aura to reside. Even if it's gone, I can still stay in another place. However, I remember that this Blood Heaven Realm seems to be very important to you, right? Especially since you're the sect master. If I'm not wrong, more than half of your force will be consumed when the Blood Heaven Realm is broken, right? Diwu Zhangzi shook his head with emotion. So miserable, so miserable. Years of hard work and cultivation were ruined just like that. Those who heard it were sad and those who heard it shed tears. Mo Shurqian spat out another mouthful of blood. After the Blood Heaven Realm was broken, the black mist that had been lingering around him gradually dissipated. His face was finally revealed in front of everyone. Chu Liyue looked over and surprise flashed across her eyes. Mo Shurqian looked very young, only in his 20s. His appearance was delicate and even a little feminine. His skin was very white, and if one looked carefully, one could even see the faint blue blood vessels under his thin skin. It was as if he had never seen the sun all year round. Anyone who saw him would find it hard to accept that the famous sect master of the Black Demon Cave had such a look. Did he rely on cultivation to maintain this appearance? Chu Liyue asked in a low voice. It was said that Mo Shurqian had been the sect master for decades. His true age was obviously not the 20-something years old that he appeared to be. Rong Xiao nodded. Diwu Zhangzi chuckled. Girl, there's something you don't know. The cultivation method of the Black Demon Cave is different from that of other sects and clans. They devour the essence and force of other cultivators to improve their own strength. It's extremely insidious. Moreover, the younger and more talented, the richer and purer the power they can extract. Mo Shurqian is now at the peak of the God realm. To reach this step, his hands are stained with the blood of countless cultivators. This was also why he had lied to Mo Yao back then. From the very beginning he knew that this Black Demon Cave was not a good place. But at that time he didn't care. Who would have thought that today they would actually stretch their hands towards you or this Diwu Zhangzi's? Chu Liyue was shocked when she heard this, but she instantly understood something. No wonder. The Black Demon sect had to as cultivators. However, after they gathered these people, they did not spend much effort in nurturing them. Instead they killed them in batches. It turned out, it was all because of this. Below, Hiziji and the rest also turned pale when they heard this. He had originally thought that after participating in this trial, he would be able to enter the Divine Ruins world and achieve meteoric success, becoming a top expert. In the end, they were just here to die. If not for Chu Liyue and Rong Xiao they would have. Everyone was scared. Looking at the surroundings, the mountains were undulating and lush. Who would have guessed that this was a hellish place? Relying on such methods to forcibly improve one's cultivation is against the heavens. It's a grave sin. In the end it will only backfire on oneself. Diwu Zhangzi stared at Mo Shurqian, his eyes cold. Originally, this old man didn't want to meddle in your affairs after all these years of self-cultivation. But you delivered yourselves to me. Don't blame this old man for being rude. With that, he suddenly raised his hand. An invisible pressure quickly spread out in all directions. Condense. Following his shout, Chu Liyue suddenly realized that the surrounding space was quickly solidifying. After the blood heaven mirror shattered, it disintegrated into countless fragments and scattered in all directions. Along the way, it carried several violent forces that almost tore the void apart and caused the world to tremble. However, after Diwu Zhangzi shouted, all the movements suddenly stopped. The fluttering leaves suddenly stopped in the air. The collapsed cliffs and rocks no longer rolled down. The air was filled with a faint smell of blood and a trace of icy cold air. A crease suddenly appeared in midair. Chu Liyue widened his eyes in shock. That was a fold caused by forcibly twisting space. Then a second, a third. This world seemed to be under Diwu Zhangzi's control. With a wave of his wrist, he caused the endless void to twist and fold. He didn't summon the divine realm, but he was the only master here. Break. Diwu Zhangzi spat out a word between his lips. The wrinkles quickly gathered around Emo Shiqian and surrounded him. Then there was a loud bang. Boom. The huge space directly exploded. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from the Love Network. Chapter 2025. There were no tricks, no hesitation. From the beginning to the end, Diwu Zhangzi only made one move and said two words. And these two words easily determined Emo Shiqian's life and death. When the compressed space exploded, Emo Shiqian's figure was instantly swallowed. Chu Liyue's pupils constricted, and she could hardly believe what she was seeing. Actually, this was the first time she had seen Diwu Zhangzi make a move with her own eyes. Back in the Red Moon Desert, although she had fought with Diwu Zhangzi and the others, their goal at that time was to improve her strength, so they knew how to hold back. She only knew that they were all very powerful, but she didn't know the upper limit of their strength. She had never seen them truly fight to the death with anyone. Furthermore, this was only Diwu Zhangzi's aura. Then how strong was his true strength? Moreover, Diwu Zhangzi wasn't the strongest among the three of them. Chu Liyue still remembered that Lan Xiao had once said in disdain, "Diwu? He just knows how to play with space. He doesn't have much ability." It was precisely because of this sentence that Chu Liyue had sent Mu Hongyu to the Red Moon Desert and let her cultivate with Diwu Zhangzi. Lan Xiao's words were still ringing in her ears. Looking at the scene in front of her, Chu Liyue was speechless. If this was just playing with space and not much ability, then how could the rest of the people in this world live? Ah! A miserable cry of agony could be heard coming from within. Even though the space there was chaotic and all kinds of black spatial rifts intertwined, and outsiders couldn't see anything at all, it wasn't difficult to imagine what kind of terrifying torture Emo Shiqian had experienced when they heard this sound. Many people from the Black Demon Cave were frightened out of their wits. Some even wanted to retreat. This person was simply too terrifying. The sect master's strength could be considered the top in the entire Black Demon Cave. Even he couldn't gain any advantage from the other party, let alone them? The world was silent, and Emo Shiqian's voice sounded especially mournful. It was chilling. However, this voice didn't last long. As time passed, the sound gradually weakened until it completely disappeared. Sect master. How is it? Someone asked cautiously and fearfully. No one answered. He didn't need to guess to know that it wouldn't be any better. Hong An looked at the space that was crazily strangling and shuddered. He swallowed his saliva with difficulty and planned to leave quietly. This place was too dangerous, especially when those three people were brought in by him. No matter what, he had to escape as soon as possible. However, just as he took a step forward, a strange voice sounded from the front. He was shocked and looked up, only to see a spatial fold surging toward him like a wave. Danger. Hong An knew that something was wrong. He moved his feet and was about to retreat quickly. But at this moment, how could he still be in control? The space around him suddenly froze, making him unable to move. He could only watch as the fold approached. No! Hong An's eyes widened in horror. The next moment he felt a chill at his waist. The voice in his throat also stopped abruptly. He slowly looked down, only to see that the lower part of his body was gone. He was swallowed and strangled by the spatial fold. Everything happened in the blink of an eye. Only then did the intense pain come flooding in from all directions. Hong An's eyes rolled back and he fainted. But soon, his upper body was also erased by the spatial fold that kept coming back and forth. In the blink of an eye he was gone. This scene made everyone more and more silent. It also made those who were ready to make a move extremely frightened and dispelled those unnecessary thoughts. Diwu Zhangzi didn't even look over. He only stroked his beard and said calmly, "Did I say you could leave?" He rarely made a move, but when he did, it had to be perfect. He hated disobedient people the most. If I tell you to stay here, then stay here. Why are you moving around? You almost destroyed the spatial pattern that I had painstakingly conceived. If everyone knew what he was thinking at this moment, they would probably vomit blood again. It turned out that the lives of these people were not as important as that spatial fold in his eyes. Chu Luiyue exhaled softly. Diwu Zhangze was already so powerful. Then, what about Lan Xiao? And what about De Bao? Moreover, De Bao seemed to be rather fearful of the Divine Ruins world and had been unwilling to make a move there. Even now she was still very puzzled about this matter. Poof! At this moment the sound of something breaking through the air was heard. Chu Luiyue put away her chaotic thoughts and looked up. In the chaotic space that was already distorted beyond recognition, a fist-sized black fog suddenly broke out from it. And within that black fog was an extremely familiar aura. That was Emo Shiqian's soul. Chu Luiyue's heart tightened. Diwu Zhangze had already made a move again. Sacrificing your life to protect your soul? You're smart. However, if you think you can escape like this, you're too naive. As soon as he finished speaking, several spatial folds appeared in the surroundings again and surrounded that black fog. However, at this moment, a series of explosions sounded one after another. It was the blood moon-like balls of light above the Black Demon Cave people's heads that exploded one after another. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 2026. Balls of blood-colored light exploded, instantly tearing the surrounding space apart. These forces seemed to be guided by something and intertwined with each other, forcibly carving out a bloody path. And the black fog that carried Emo Shiqian's soul fled along that path. It was extremely fast. Diwu Zhangze sneered. "Want to run? Not so easy." He waved his hands and the surrounding space began to squeeze toward the center again. Emo Shiqian's path forward was sealed again. Bang! The black fog crashed forward fiercely, but it could not break through the space barrier in front of it. Diwu Zhangze had already sealed this place. How could he escape? Even when he was at his peak he might not be able to do so, let alone now. The Blood Heaven realm was already destroyed and Emo Shiqian was done for. His current actions were just the desperate struggle of a cornered beast. A transparent cage suddenly appeared in Diwu Zhangze's palm. The cage was only the size of a palm, and it shone faintly under the sunlight. Chu Luiyue focused on it and his gaze suddenly focused. The glittering dots of light on the surface were actually runes. Exquisite technique, go. Diwu Zhangze let out a clear shout, and the small transparent cage quickly flew out. It silently drew a straight silver line in the air, and went straight for the black fog. There was no way to avoid it. Just as the black fog was about to be locked up by the transparent cage, an explosion suddenly came from their side. Chu Luiyue immediately looked back and frowned. It was a subordinate of the Black Demon Cave. His body suddenly exploded, turning into a cloud of blood mist. He didn't even have the chance to cry out in pain before he lost his life. Then the cloud of blood mist actually flew toward the black fog. As soon as the two came into contact, they quickly merged. The color of the black fog seemed to have become a little thicker. Furthermore, there seemed to be a faint blood-red color in the middle of it. It was just that this blood color was hidden and could not be seen clearly. Then the same thing happened one after another. Bang, bang, bang. Explosions sounded one after another, and in the blink of an eye, the surrounding subordinates of the Black Demon Cave suffered heavy casualties. One had to know that due to the huge commotion from before, almost everyone in the Black Demon Cave was here. No one expected that these people were not injured because of Chu Luiyue and Rong Xiu, nor were they killed because of Diwu Zhangze. They had all died in the hands of Emo Shiqian. A stream of warm blood splashed onto Domin's face. He, who was in a state of deep shock and numbness, suddenly woke up. Run, run. His face was pale and his voice was trembling. Without any hesitation he used his fastest speed. However, just as he took half a step forward, the origin power in his body suddenly began to frantically gather towards his origin core, and then, bang! Before Domin could even react, he felt an intense pain and his body completely dissipated. All the power in his body condensed into a bloody mist and merged with the black mist. At this time the black fog had become much more solid. Inside the blood was dense and eerie. Diwu Zhangze frowned. This Emo Shiqian was more cunning and ruthless than she had imagined. In order to survive, he sacrificed his subordinates without hesitation. In a short while, nearly 1/3 of the people in the Black Demon Cave had died in his hands. In Emo Shiqian's eyes, their lives were just a weight that could increase his chances of escaping. It was not worth mentioning. The power above the black fog became stronger and stronger, and its speed became faster and faster. Diwu Zhangzi had already sealed this space, but he still could not completely control it. The sky fell into chaos. More and more people died and the smell of blood filled the air. It had almost become an extremely tragic purgatory. The transparent cage followed closely behind, but as Emo Shurqian's soul devoured more and more power, the gap between the two finally began to widen. Diwu Zhangzi's expression hardened. He was about to make a move when he suddenly frowned, and his hand movements stiffened for a moment. Senior Diwu? Rong Xiu immediately sensed that something was wrong. Hearing this, Chu Luiwei immediately looked over and realized that Diwu Zhangzi's phantom had become much more transparent than before, and the aura and pressure around him had weakened a lot. Chu Luiwei's heart sank. What happened just now? Although Emo Shurqian was still struggling and trying to escape, it should not have much of an impact on Diwu Zhangzi. He looked as if he had suddenly suffered some kind of attack. It's okay. Diwu Zhangzi shook his head, took a deep breath, and gathered power to attack again. However, this short delay gave Emo Shurqian a chance. In midair, a blood-colored totem suddenly appeared. Then the black fog rushed over quickly, directly breaking through the surrounding space's seal and pressure, and went straight for the blood-colored totem. Rong Xiu sensed that something was wrong and immediately looked over. His phoenix eyes were stunned and he directly made a move. A golden flame flew out, and almost at the moment when the black fog was about to disappear into the blood-colored totem, it violently exploded. Hearing this, Chu Luiwei suddenly looked up. At this glance, she only saw that the black fog was fiercely bombarded by Rong Xiu's golden flame. The blood inside seemed to surge again, and there were faint cries of pain ringing in his ears. But in the end, the black fog barely squeezed into the blood-colored totem. Then, the blood-colored totem dissipated instantly. Everything happened in the blink of an eye. Many people did not even have time to see the totem before it was over. Hateful. You still escaped. A trace of annoyance appeared on Diwu Zhangzi's face. Rong Xiu shook his head. Senior, don't worry too much. His soul has been seriously injured by me, and it will take a very long time and a lot of energy to recover. Furthermore, his physical body had already been damaged. It would likely be a long time before he stopped moving. Diwu Zhangzi shook his head and sighed. He knew that Rong Xiu was comforting him, but he was still a little unwilling. It was not difficult for him to kill Emo Shurqian. If not for just now, Chu Luiwei stood at the side and watched this scene, frowning even more. In just a short while, Diwu Zhangzi's phantom was even more illusory than before. It was as if a gust of wind could blow it away. Compared to when he first appeared, he was as different as heaven and earth. There was really something wrong with him like this. Chu Luiwei finally couldn't help but take a step forward, and there was some worry in her eyes. Senior Diwu, what's wrong with you? Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 2027. Diwu Zhangzi opened his mouth wanting to say something, but after some hesitation he swallowed his words. Let's find a time to talk about this. For now, let's settle the matter of the Black Demon Cave first. Emo Shurqian abandoned the Black Demon Cave and ran away. Before leaving, he took the lives of nearly half of the people in the Black Demon Cave. Although the remaining half were still alive, they were more or less injured by the impact of Diwu Zhangzi and Emo Shurqian's power. Most importantly, Emo Shurqian's actions had completely destroyed their beliefs and ideas. The ground was littered with broken bones, the strong smell of blood, the messy mountain top. Everything reminded them of what had just happened. Their sect master had sacrificed them in order to win a path of survival for himself. Even if they were all loyal and devoted, even if they were all going through fire and water. But it turned out that in Emo Shurqian's eyes, they were just ants, worthless at all. If he had cared about the Black Demon Cave and the people here at all, he would never have done such a thing. Compared to the destruction of the body, the collapse of one's spirit and beliefs was more likely to cause one to fall into despair and collapse. Chu Luiwei looked around. Among the remaining people, a few were venerables and the rest were basically exalted gods. But at this moment they all looked equally dejected. Obviously they no longer had the strength to fight. Diwu Zhangzi's mind stirred, and the transparent cage suddenly grew in the wind, trapping the remaining people of the Black Demon Cave inside. After Emo Shurqian ran away, the rest of them couldn't run away anymore. Rong Xiu, come with me. Diwu Zhangzi knew that the two of them had a lot of questions, so after controlling these people, he proposed to have a private discussion with them. Chu Luiwei nodded slightly and looked at Chang Wanzhou. Little Zhou, stay here and watch over them first. Also, I'll leave the people below to you. Chang Wanzhou immediately nodded respectfully. Yes. Although he had always been taciturn and had a cold personality, he was extremely smart and knew how to deal with these things. Although he had been injured before, his recovery ability was very strong, so it was not a big problem. Chu Liwei thought for a moment, then shouted again, "Dumpling!" Light flashed before his eyes, and Dumpling reverted from her true form to her human form. She raised her small face. "Are you? You stay here and help keep watch." After all, Chang Wanzhou was injured. With Dumpling around, it would be an extra layer of protection. In fact, Dumpling had already expected her thoughts. She immediately nodded and responded crisply. "Good." Chu Liwei and the other two soon arrived at the mountain where Mo Shiqian appeared. This was also the center of the entire Black Demon Cave. Usually, there was a barrier around the mountain. Except for Mo Shiqian, no one else was allowed to enter. But now that Mo Shiqian had run away, his body was destroyed and his soul was damaged, the enchantment naturally broke on its own. At the top of the mountain, there was a magnificent palace. It was obvious that it belonged to Mo Shiqian. As soon as they approached, a faint smell of blood spread from it. Chu Liwei frowned slightly. Rong Xiu flicked his finger, and a golden flame quickly flew out, forming a line of fire around the palace and surrounding it. As the flame burned, a strange sizzling sound kept coming. At the same time, there was also an unpleasant smell. Chu Liwei frowned even more. Diwu Zhangzi sneered. It seems that Mo Shiqian left a lot of dirty things behind. About 15 minutes later, the flames gradually extinguished. A gentle breeze blew by, and that unbearable smell finally dissipated. Even the smell of blood in the air disappeared. Rong Xiu took the lead. The three of them directly entered the palace. Walking into the palace, Chu Liwei quickly looked around. The ornaments and decorations here were all extremely luxurious. Treasures that couldn't be found outside could be seen everywhere here. It was obvious how extravagant his daily life was. It seems that even after evacuating from the Divine Ruins world, Mo Shiqian's life is still quite comfortable. Chu Liwei raised her eyebrows and smiled. If they hadn't come here by accident, they didn't know when they would be able to fight Mo Shiqian head-on. He was hiding here really well. The Black Demon Cave has never been short of money. Diwu Zhangzi snorted. Over the years, countless cultivators have been bewitched by them, thinking that as long as they join them, they can soar into the sky and become a top expert in the world. For this, they didn't hesitate to go bankrupt and pay an endless price. But they don't know that this is not a paradise for cultivation, but a purgatory. He knew quite a bit about the Black Demon Cave. Although he hadn't been in contact with them for a long time, it was still the same old thing today. After so many years, the inheritance of the Black Demon Cave had never been broken. Chu Liwei nodded in agreement. Disregarding everything else, weren't the dozens of cultivators outside here for this very reason? Although there aren't many people in the Black Demon Cave, they don't seem weak. Chu Liwei pondered for a moment and said strangely. Even if they are carefully selected geniuses, it's still a little beyond common sense. Even a first-rate aristocratic family like Yun Tianke only had a handful of venerate gods in its ranks. However, venerable gods seem to be very common in the Black Demon Cave. However, the strength of these people seems to be slightly weaker than ordinary cultivators of the same level. Chu Liwei thought of the scene when he fought with those people. Hong'an was fine, but although Do Min was in the venerable god realm, the strength he displayed was barely satisfactory. Not to mention a top existence like Yi Wentao, he couldn't even compare to ordinary venerable gods. You're right. Compared to real cultivators, they are indeed a lot worse. Rong Xiu said. Chu Liwei asked curiously. Real cultivators? This meant, was he referring to those people in the Black Demon Cave? Rong Xiu raised his chin. There was a huge wall in front of them. We'll know what's going on when we go in. There was a door on both sides of the wall. The door was unlocked and opened with a push. But thinking about it carefully, it wasn't difficult to understand. Most of the time, only Mo Shiqian was here. He didn't need to worry that someone would come here. After breaking through the door, creak, the door opened and Rong Xiu walked in first. Diwu Zhangzi and Chu Liwei followed closely behind. When he saw the scene in front of him, Chu Liwei was stunned. The space behind the wall was extremely empty without any extra objects. Except for a sand table in the middle. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 2028. On the sand table, the mountain range was lush and undulating. With just one look, Chu Luiyue immediately recognized that this was the sand table in Black Fiend Cave's territory. She walked closer and saw that there were blood spots on the small mountain peaks, flickering with a faint glow. Chu Luiyue focused her gaze and took a closer look. Only then did she realize that the blood spots actually contained a faint suppression. Suddenly, she turned her gaze and found that a mountain peak beside her had collapsed. This was the mountain that Hongan had brought them to in the beginning. The mountain outside had collapsed, so the model on the sand table had also changed. Chu Luiyue suddenly realized something and sucked in a cold breath. This sand table is connected to the outside world. Rong Xiu finished her sentence. His tone was not surprised, and his expression was indifferent, as if he had already expected this. Mo Shichen can control everything outside through this sand table, and what happens outside will be quickly reflected on the sand table so that Mo Shichen can quickly know. This was why even if he did not come out and did not listen to any reports from the servants, he still knew what was happening outside. Chu Luiyue nodded in understanding and looked at the sand table carefully, but the waves in her heart did not calm down for a long time. Mo Shichen was really a very capable person. Cough, cough, cough. Diwu Zhangzi suddenly coughed. Chu Luiyue came back to her senses and hurried forward. Senior Diwu, how are you? She had felt that his condition was a little strange just now, but now, his aura seemed to be weaker. Diwu Zhangzi waved his hand. I'm fine. This aura has been trapped for many years. Now that it's out, it's inevitable that I'm not used to it. I'll be fine after resting for a while. How could Chu Luiyue not be worried? She didn't believe a single word of the reason he gave her. After pondering for a moment, Chu Luiyue asked. Did something happen in the Red Moon Desert? Diwu Zhangzi paused and subconsciously wanted to deny it. What? Before he finished speaking, he looked up and met a pair of dark and bright eyes. Those eyes were as bright as stars, as if they had seen through everything. Diwu Zhangzi could not say the rest of his words. After hesitating for a moment, he sighed deeply. Recently there has been some trouble in the Red Moon Desert. In the past, the old man's aura was sealed in the Blood Heaven realm and had no connection with the soul under the Red Moon Desert, so it was not affected. But now that he has broken out of the Blood Heaven realm, he will inevitably be implicated. Implicated? Chu Luiyue inexplicably felt. Diwu Zhangzi seemed to be weighing his words. Although the old man isn't weak, he doesn't have a divine body, so many things aren't very convenient for him. Chu Luiyue's heart fell. Otherwise, with the strength of Diwu Zhangzi and the other two, how could they have been injured? Moreover, during this period of time, there had been no news from Debao. Diwu Zhangzi comforted her. Girl, don't worry. It's just a small injury. It's not a big deal. Chu Luiyue stared straight at him. Diwu Zhangzi suddenly could not say the rest of his words. After a long while, he finally shook his head helplessly and smiled bitterly. Girl, you're too smart. Nothing could be hidden from her. Chu Luiyue said. I'll go back with you and help you and Senior Lan Shao refine the divine body. She was the one who helped refine Debao's divine body. Now that she was much stronger than before, she should be more confident. She originally planned to go to the Red Moon Desert after the matter in the Peach Blossom Dock was over. Now was the time. Diwu Zhangzi shook his head. Girl, you can't go now. Can't? What? Chu Luiyue was puzzled. She had been to the Red Moon Desert many times, and it was just outside the Divine Ruins world. She could reach there quickly without crossing the Gate Realm. Diwu Zhangzi paused for a moment. Lan Shao and I are not as strong as Debao. Therefore, even with your help, we still won't be able to refine our divine bodies in our current state. Even if you go, it'll be in vain. Moreover, the Red Moon Desert is in a dangerous period now. Any powerhouse below the level of a venerable god will die without a trace. If you go. Chu Luiyue was stunned, then she lowered her head slightly. She knew about the dangerous period of the Red Moon Desert. Every 100 years, the Red Moon Desert would be shrouded by the Blood Moon for a month. Generally speaking, when the Blood Moon appeared, Debao and the other two could come out from underground and wander around freely. But the dangerous period was different. During that month, the entire desert was dark and blood-red, and the energy of heaven and earth was violent. It was extremely dangerous. That was why it was called the dangerous period. I know that your strength has increased greatly, and you can even fight against a venerable god powerhouse. But you're not a real venerable god after all. As long as you haven't broken through that threshold, you can't enter the Red Moon Desert during the dangerous period. Diwu Zhangzi sighed. During this month, the three of us can't even take care of ourselves, let alone take care of you. If those two guys know that I brought you back, it'll really cause a ruckus. In the end, it was because they were worried about her. Chu Liyue's thoughts turned. Dangerous period. No wonder there was no news from Debao for so long. He was really delayed. But, Senior Diwu, I remember Senior Lan Xiao mentioned before that the last dangerous period of the Red Moon Desert was less than 100 years ago, right? Chu Liyue asked uncertainly. She had heard Lan Xiao mention the dangerous period a few years ago in the Red Moon Desert. Hearing what he said, it didn't seem to have happened that long ago. If it had been 100 years he wouldn't have said it in that tone, but she didn't ask for the exact time so she could only guess. Diwu Zhangze was stunned, then he cursed in his heart. Lan Xiao can't keep his mouth shut. Isn't it enough for him to be obsessed with my beauty every day? Why is he still so talkative? And he's talking about such important things. Can I let you know about this? You're right. It's indeed less than 100 years since the last dangerous period. But, the energy of heaven and earth in the Red Moon Desert has always been unstable. The so-called 100 years is actually just a rough estimate and not accurate. This time, it might also be related to Debao's recondensing of the divine body. Diwu Zhangze explained. Disregarding everything else, the last sentence was true. Chu Liyue thought about it and this explanation seemed to make sense. Then, you should stay in Peach Blossom Cove during this period of time. It won't be too late for you to go after the dangerous period. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 2029. Seeing Diwu Zhangze's insistence, Chu Liyue had no choice but to agree. Then, I'll wait for your news. Diwu Zhangze secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Yes. During this period of time, you can prepare the things first. The old man is fine, but Lan Xiao is a little troublesome. You know that he's always very picky about his face. If he wants to condense a divine body, he'll need a lot of things. Then he mentioned some of the herbs and other things that he needed. Chu Liyue's eyebrows relaxed. Don't worry, Peach Blossom Doc has all these things. Diwu Zhangze nodded in relief. Then it's settled. Chu Liyue naturally agreed, but there was still one more tricky thing. Then, your aura. Even if he was a top powerhouse, such an aura still needed to be attached to something to be completely preserved. Since the Blood Heaven realm was gone, he had to find the next one as soon as possible. Diwu Zhangze waved his hand indifferently. It doesn't matter as long as it's a venerable artifact. He knew that with Chu Liyue and Rong Xiu's wealth, they could still afford a venerable artifact. But that wasn't what Chu Liyue was worried about. She hesitated for a moment but still spoke. Senior Diwu, I have a lot of venerable artifacts here, but even if you can hide them, how will you return to the Red Moon Desert? The expression on Diwu Zhangze's face instantly froze. Obviously he had also neglected this problem. He frowned as he felt a headache coming on. I'll escort you back. Rong Xiu's deep and pleasant voice sounded. Chu Liyue and Diwu Zhangze looked at him at the same time. Rong Xiu smiled faintly. There shouldn't be a more suitable candidate than me. Senior Diwu, what do you think? Chu Liyue immediately understood. That's right. Rong Xiu was now a venerable god powerhouse. Of course he could go to the Red Moon Desert. Diwu Zhangze nodded immediately. Yes. You can go together. Chu Liyue's anxious heart also relaxed. With Rong Xiu accompanying him, there shouldn't be any problems. If she wanted to go to the Red Moon Desert, she would have to either wait for the dangerous months to pass or break through to the God Realm. In comparison, the former was easier to achieve. She had just condensed a divine body not long ago, and now she wanted to cross the threshold of the God Realm. It was a bit exaggerated. As if seeing that she was still a little uneasy, Diwu Zhangze comforted her. You don't have to be too worried. With your talent, it won't be long before you become a god. He spoke with absolute certainty and sincerity. It was as if he could already see that day. Chu Liyue couldn't help but smile. You really think highly of me. All along, De Bao and the others had been especially fond of her. At the same time, their expectations were also extremely high. In the eyes of others, there were many things that were impossible to do, but they seemed to think that she could do it. Of course she did it all. Although she had suffered a lot in the process, now that she thought about it, she had indeed benefited a lot. She tilted her head and looked thoughtfully at Rong Xiu. Speaking of which, Rong Xiu's cultivation seemed to be very smooth. A few years ago he had already broken through to the God Realm and had 2 divine bodies. Not long ago he directly broke through to the God Realm in the God-slaying mound. The gap that was as difficult as climbing the sky for thousands of cultivators was easily crossed by him. Chu Liyue had never seen Rong Xiu worry about cultivation. It seemed that he could break through as long as he wanted to. As soon as this thought flashed through her mind, Chu Liwei couldn't help but laugh. Rong Xiao asked with great interest, what are you laughing at? Chu Liwei's eyes lit up. I'm thinking. Now everyone says that I'm so talented that I can fight a god in the god realm. However, what they don't know is that compared to me, your talent is likely stronger, not weaker. She suddenly leaned closer and asked with a teasing smile. Your Highness, why do I feel that cultivation isn't that challenging for you at all? If I didn't know that you were dreaming, I would have thought that you could break through at will as long as you want. Diwu Zhangze looked up at Rong Xiao. Rong Xiao's smile deepened as he gently caressed her head. What are you talking about? Chu Liwei was originally just joking, so she shrugged her shoulders and smiled. Rong Xiao's eyes flashed and looked at the sand table again. I wonder where Mo Shiqian escaped to this time. Chu Liwei's heart sank when she heard this. Mo Shiqian's physical body had been destroyed, and only a soul was left. This was even more difficult to find. The world inside and outside the divine ruins was vast. Who knew what he would do next? She followed Rong Xiao's gaze and suddenly narrowed her eyes. This is... She walked closer and saw that the originally flickering blood-red light on the destroyed mountain peak had already dimmed. There were some other spots next to it that were the same. The light was dim and there was no vitality. Mo Shiqian's cultivation should also be based on this sand table. Diwu Zhangze also walked over and said in a deep voice. To be precise, the entire Black Demon Cave is like this. Chu Liwei recalled everything that had happened before and fell into deep thought. They set up Shen formations everywhere and used various methods to lure those cultivators in. Finally, they devoured their power to increase their own cultivation? Diwu Zhangze nodded solemnly. That's right. Almost all of their power comes from this. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 2030. Using this method to forcibly plunder the power of others could greatly increase the speed of cultivation, and allow one to complete the breakthrough of various levels in an extremely short period of time. Compared to ordinary cultivation methods, this method was definitely a shortcut. This was also the usual method of the Black Demon Cave. Diwu Zhangze shook his head. Back then, only Mo Yao and a few others used this method. I didn't expect their entire sect to have fallen into the mire of greed. Chu Liwei suddenly understood. This also explained her previous doubts. Using this method to cultivate, the experts of the Black Demon Cave emerged extremely quickly, but because they did not cultivate with their own true abilities, the power they obtained was mixed and mottled, and their combat strength was extremely weak. How could there be a shortcut on the path of cultivation? In order to expand their forces, the Black Demon Cave made everyone use this method to cultivate. Although it could greatly expand the sect in a short period of time, it was not a solution in the long run. For example, while there were many gods present today, only a few of them were actually capable of fighting. Once they encountered a powerful one, they would immediately be defeated. It was just a shell. What do you plan to do with those people outside? Diwu Zhangze asked. Mo Shiqian killed a group when he left, but there were still hundreds of people outside. Chu Liwei looked at Rong Xiao. Rong Xiao's thin lips curled slightly. Cut the weeds and eliminate the roots. After Chu Liwei and the others entered the hall, everyone gathered together. Above the almost razed ruins, a red-gold flame burned brightly like a wall, dividing the crowd into two parts. On one side was Hiziji and the others who came to participate in the trial, and on the other side were the remnants of the Black Demon Cave. At this time they were all trapped in a transparent cage. Dumpling and Chang Wanzhou were in charge of guarding. Chang Wanzhou stood with his sword in his arms. His body was stained with a lot of blood and he looked quite wretched. However, he stood straight as if he would never bend, and would not be defeated by any force. His delicate and beautiful face was indifferent and cold, without any expression. It was already evening. The afterglow of the sun shone on his body, and his soft golden short hair fluttered in the wind like a painting. Suddenly Chang Wanzhou felt a small hand pulling at his clothes. Xiaozhou, Xiaozhou? He lowered his head. Dumpling was looking up at him curiously. What's up? Chang Wanzhou didn't want to say anything, but he remembered that Dumpling was Chu Liue's contracted magical beast, so he opened his mouth. His voice was as cold as ever. However, it wasn't the first day that Dumpling knew him, so she didn't mind. She grinned. Her grape-like eyes seemed to be glowing, dazzling and bright. Little Zhou, tell me, how did you recover so quickly? If she didn't sense it wrongly, Chang Wanzhou's injuries were already mostly healed. It was also because of this that Dumpling made up her mind to come over and ask for clarification. That's all you want to ask? Chang Wanzhou was a little surprised. Dumpling nodded quickly. She was really curious. One had to know that Chang Wanzhou had been seriously injured when he fought with Mo Shiqian. His external and internal injuries were quite serious. But it had only been 2 hours and he was almost healed. Dumpling was a crimson gold heavenly phoenix, and she had the purest bloodline. Her body was extremely resistant to beatings, and her recovery ability was unparalleled. There were very few people in the world who could compare to her. However, Chang Wanzhou was one of them. That was why she was particularly curious. Chang Wanzhou had always looked thin and weak on the surface. How could he? It's been like this since I became a great deity. Chang Wanzhou was silent for a moment before answering. Dumpling was stunned. That's it? That's it. Chang Wanzhou's answer was very boring, and it seemed that he had no intention of continuing to explain. Dumpling tugged at his clothes again and still refused to give up. Then, is it because your divine body is very powerful? I haven't condensed a divine body yet. Chang Wanzhou spoke, directly blocking Dumpling's remaining words. She smacked her lips and scratched her head. No divine body? Then, that shouldn't be. Chang Wanzhou wasn't a divine beast. Logically speaking, it was impossible for him to recover so quickly. Moreover, his great deity strength seemed to be very strong. Dumpling raised her head again and stared at him for a long time, puzzled. Chang Wanzhou's expression was indifferent and he didn't say anything else. He really had nothing to say. Because what he said just now was the truth. In fact, it wasn't that he didn't notice the problem with his body. It was just that he had been thinking about Chu Luiyue before, so he didn't think too much about it. At this time, Tuanzi's words reminded him. But he didn't have an answer. Dumpling suddenly exclaimed in a low voice. My hand is frozen. Chang Wanzhou lowered his head and saw that there was a thin layer of ice on her little hand. He frowned. Dumpling also raised her head and looked at him with a shocked expression. Just now, she only tugged at his clothes. And there was no ice on his body. How? A reddish gold flame quickly burned, and the thin layer of ice quickly melted. This bit of cold air didn't pose a threat to Dumpling, but the reddish gold heavenly phoenix was an existence of the purest yang. Ordinary cold air couldn't cause her body to freeze. Dumpling suddenly thought of something and widened her eyes slightly. The cold in your body? Before she could finish, the sound of something breaking through the air was heard. It was Chu Luiyue and Rong Xiu who had returned. Seeing Dumpling and Chang Wanzhou's expressions, Chu Luiyue was a little surprised. What's wrong? What are you talking about? Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 2031. Chang Wanzhou said, It's nothing. Dumpling pouted and swallowed the rest of her words. She was smart and could tell that Chang Wanzhou didn't want to talk about it, so she didn't want to continue asking. Anyway, there would be time and opportunities to find out in the future. Are you? Dumpling happily threw herself at Chu Luiyue. She was still young and she still had some childishness. Other than Chu Luiyue, her heart could not contain anything else. Now that she saw Chu Luiyue, she immediately forgot about other things and people. Chu Luiyue lowered his head and smiled as he patted Dumpling's head. When are we going to the Red Moon Desert? Dumpling asked curiously. The matter here had come to an end. They should be leaving soon? Chu Luiyue shook his head. Let's go back to Peach Blossom Dock first. We'll go after a while. Ah? Dumpling was a little surprised, but she didn't think much of it. No matter where they went, it didn't make any difference to her. Anyway, she just needed to follow Ayu. Chu Luiyue pinched her chubby little face, then looked up at Chang Wanzhou. Master. Chang Wanzhou bowed. Chu Luiyue looked at him steadily, and a hint of as expected flashed in his eyes. Previously, she found that Chang Wanzhou's recovery ability was amazing. It hadn't been long, but his aura was basically back to normal. She suppressed this thought and turned her gaze to look at the people trapped in the transparent cage. And those people were looking at her at this time. Fear, despair, uneasiness. Everyone had different expressions, but they were obviously in awe and fear of Chu Luiyue and Rong Xiu, who had appeared again. After what happened before, everyone now understood that these two people were the most dangerous people in the world to provoke. Not only was his strength extraordinary, but his background was also extraordinary. Then he thought about the things that had spread throughout the Divine Ruins world. How could they not feel uneasy? Some people were looking behind the two of them, but they didn't see Diwu Zhangzi. After all, the exquisite technique was left behind by him. If he didn't show up, then sorry to trouble you, senior. Chu Luiyue said softly. Diwu Zhangzi's voice was heard instantly. It's just a small matter, what's so troublesome about it? Just as he finished speaking, the transparent cage suddenly began to tighten. The lines seemed to be under the control of some kind of power, quickly twisting and changing shape. No. Some people realized that something was wrong, and fear flashed across their faces. Even if they were extremely disappointed in the Black Demon Cave and Emo, it would be a lie to say that they had no intention of surviving. In the face of life and death, not many people could remain calm. However, before he could finish shouting, he stopped abruptly. That person's figure completely disappeared into the intertwined transparent lines. More than one person had such an encounter. In the exquisite technique, everyone who was still alive was trapped in the Black Demon Cave. At this time, under Diwu Zhang's control, they were all killed by the exquisite technique. They didn't have the strength to fight back at all. Most people didn't even have the chance to make a sound before their souls were destroyed. On the ground, the color of blood spread out and then quickly disappeared. The transparent cage became smaller and smaller, and finally, after a quarter of an hour, it returned to the size of a palm. There was complete silence. Hiziji and the others were only separated by a wall of fire. Everyone watched this scene in silence. In fact, most people were already numb. Previously, when Emo was escaping, he used the lives of countless subordinates to build momentum for himself. His methods were ruthless and the scene was tragic. In comparison, dying silently in the exquisite technique was much better. After seeing a hellish scene, it was much easier for him to accept other things. Only the thick smell of blood in the air showed what had just happened here. Swoosh. Rongxiu raised his wrist slightly, and the exquisite technique flew into his sleeve. Now, Diwu Zhangzi had attached himself to a venerable artifact again. At this time that thing was on Rongxiu. Hence, when Diwu Zhangzi summoned the Linglong technique back, it was naturally through Rongxiu. Many people subconsciously looked in the direction of the exquisite technique, but as soon as their eyes landed on the figure in white, they hurriedly looked away. They didn't even dare to look at his face. This man was noble and unparalleled, looking down on the world. Even if he was just standing there casually, he still exuded pride and nobility from his bones. This small space was created by the Black Demon Cave using extraordinary means. Now that the Blood Heaven realm is broken, Emo fled, and the people of the Black Demon Cave were annihilated, there is no longer any support here and will soon collapse. You should leave as soon as possible. Chu Luiyue said. Just now in the hall, Rongxiu and she had worked together to completely destroy the sand table. This place would soon become a ruin or even cease to exist. Hearing this, everyone looked at each other. In fact, it wasn't that they didn't expect this outcome, but when they heard it, they couldn't help but feel a little complicated. After all, they had all come with great ambitions at the beginning. They thought that after passing the trial, they would be able to enter the Divine Ruins world and get a better chance to cultivate. Who knew that it would end like this? Chu Luiyue raised her chin. The barrier over there is already very weak. You can all leave directly. With that, she looked at Rongxiu. They also had to part ways and leave. Be careful. Chu Luiyue said. Rongxiu nodded, his eyes deep. I'll be back soon. Chu Luiyue's lips curled up slightly. In fact, with Rongxiu's speed, it wouldn't take too long to get to the Red Moon Desert from here. Moreover, his strength was extraordinary, so there was nothing to worry about. Okay. Then I'll wait for you at the Peach Blossom Cove. Rongxiu's eyes flashed. Anyway, there's nothing urgent over there. I'll send you her off first. Although he knew that Chu Luiyue wasn't weak now, he still couldn't rest assured. Only by sending her back personally could he feel at ease. Chu Luiyue understood what he was thinking, so she didn't reject him. She thought for a while and said, okay. We'll go back through the Gate Realm over there. She was naturally referring to the Dao Gate Realm behind the Black Demon Cave Mountains. When they came, the power in the Gate Realm went berserk, causing the void to tremble, and finally sent them out of Cloud State City. If they went back now, it would be impossible to find the way back. The best way was to go back through this Gate Realm first. Rongxiu nodded. After the two discussed everything, they didn't hesitate anymore and directly set off. However, just as they turned around and didn't have time to take a step, they suddenly heard someone shout behind them. Both of you please wait. Chu Luiyue stopped in her tracks and looked back. The one who spoke was Hiziji. Is there anything else? Hiziji took a deep breath as if he was still a little nervous and then directly knelt down. Hiziji and my sister's lives were saved by Your Highness the Holy Sun and Your Highness the Princess. If you don't mind, in the future, Hiziji is willing to follow the two of you and serve you faithfully. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from the Love Network. Chapter 2032. Chu Luiyue was stunned for a moment. Before he could speak, He Xilan also knelt down. Brother, what you said is also what I think. The two of them knelt down firmly. Their expressions were sincere and their words were sincere. Chu Luiyue could see that the two of them really thought so. But, it's just a small matter. Moreover, this time we did those things for ourselves. We didn't mean to save you. You don't have to take it to heart. Chu Luiyue smiled and waved his hand carelessly. He Ziji and his sister were resolute. Perhaps to the princess it's just a small matter. But it's true that you saved our lives. We should repay the kindness of saving our lives. He took a deep breath and revealed a trace of embarrassment on his face. Speaking of which, our strength is low and we indeed don't have the qualifications to be by your side. But this feeling of gratitude was absolutely genuine. If you need us in the future, we will go through fire and water without hesitation. As he spoke, he bent down, bowed solemnly and kowtowed. He Xilan was originally quite eloquent, but at this time she didn't know how to say anything. After hesitating for a long time, she could only kowtow with He Ziji. At first they didn't feel it. But after thinking about it, they had encountered a lot of trouble on the way. If it wasn't for Chu Luiyue and the others, they would have died many times over. It was only right for him to thank her. However, they did have self-awareness. Look at Chu Luiyue and Rongxiu, what kind of people were by their side. Not to mention the other backers, just the strength of a follower like Chang Wanzhou was already at the level of a high god. People like them really didn't have the qualifications to be by their side. The reason why they said this was not for anything else, but purely to express their gratitude and longing. Their seriousness made Chu Luiyue not know whether to laugh or cry. At first, they were willing to travel with He Ziji and the others purely to be able to sneak in and see what the so-called trial was all about. As for the actions that followed, actually he didn't do it on purpose. It was just that if he wanted to take care of the Black Demon Cave, he couldn't avoid doing those things. These are all small matters. You don't have to care too much about them. Go back to your own places. Before Chu Luiyue could finish his words, everyone in front of him suddenly fell to their knees. Brother, he is right. Actually, it's not just you two siblings. Even we are only able to survive because of the kindness of the Holy Sun and the Empress concubine. If you're talking about repayment, we naturally can't do nothing. That's right. From now on, if you have any orders, we will obey them. We are weak and cannot be compared to Lord Chang. Only our hot-bloodedness and our lives can make up for it. I hope the Saint's son and Empress concubine won't mind. Everyone spoke one after another. Every word was from the bottom of their hearts. For a moment, the crowd was agitated. Chu Luiyue was stunned for a moment, then looked at Rongxiu. She really didn't expect that they would have such a reaction. As she listened to their words, her originally calm heart seemed to be stirred up by waves of emotions. She never thought of herself as a good person. Even if she occasionally saved people, it was under extremely special circumstances. She rarely took these things to heart. But at this moment, her heart was stirred. Pairs of sincere and eager eyes looked at her just like that. They were sincerely grateful. Let them follow you back to the Peach Blossom Cove. Rongxiu suddenly said. What? Chu Luiyue was a little surprised. When He Ziji and the others heard this, they were all shocked and subconsciously quieted down. Rongxiu's lips curled into a faint smile. The Peach Blossom Cove has two gates that can connect the inside and outside of the Divine Ruins world. Not only can it accept experts from the outside world, but it can also defend against dangers from everywhere. All of the people present were quite talented in cultivation. If they could be brought to the Peach Blossom Cove and cultivate there, many of them would definitely be able to increase their strength by another level. Moreover, these dozens of people were loyal to Chu Luiyue and were trustworthy. Bringing them back might not be a bad thing. This was the most suitable choice at the moment. Chu Luiyue thought for a moment. Rongxiu's words made sense. Then, it's settled? She made up her mind and looked at everyone. All right. Then all of you will follow me back to the Peach Blossom Cove. The group of people arrived in front of the gate realm. Looking at the light screen that fell from the sky, everyone's faces were filled with undisguised excitement and agitation. After all, this was the purpose of their trip. After this gate realm was the Divine Ruins world. Which cultivator in the world didn't want to enter and become an expert? Let's stop here for now. Chu Luiyue looked at Rongxiu and said softly. Rongxiu nodded and glanced at the gate realm. There are no totems above this gate realm, so it should be an ownerless land. The Black Demon Cave must have gone through careful screening to choose this place. In order to keep it a secret, they didn't even engrave the Black Demon Cave's totems on this gate realm. Rumble. There was a loud sound. Everyone looked back and saw that the undulating mountain range suddenly began to collapse. The mountain rocks rolled down and turned into dust. The wind blew and everything was white. In the distance, the silver barrier also began to shake violently. "Looks like this place is going to collapse completely," Chu Luiyue said softly. She then took a deep breath in and looked at Rong Xiu fixedly. "Then we'll leave first. Be careful on your way. If you see De Bao and the others, say hello for me." With that, she turned around and stepped into the gate realm. This gate realm was the same as the other gate realms. There were no accidents like the Peach Blossom Cove's gate realm. After Chu Luiyue entered, the others also entered one after another. After a while, their figures all disappeared into the gate realm. It was only then that Rong Xiu retracted his gaze. He glanced sideways at the collapsing space. "Senior Diwu, I'll send you back." As soon as he finished speaking, his figure quickly disappeared from where he stood. Rong Xiu quickly left Cloud State City. After the Black Demon Cave's destruction, this place had become a dead city. After Rong Xiu walked out of the city gate, he paused for a moment and chose a direction. Diwu Zhangze knew how to get to the Red Moon Desert, so he didn't have to worry about it. Rong Xiu was extremely fast. After about a day, he arrived at the Great Desolate Swamp again. As soon as he stepped out of the void, Rong Xiu already felt that something was wrong. His eyebrows twitched slightly. He stood still and looked ahead. This was the intersection of the three realms of the Great Desolate Swamp. Mirror Lake and the Mystic Forest were calm at this time. Only the Red Moon Desert was dark, and a blood moon hung high in the sky. The crimson light shrouded everything. Diwu Zhangze's voice came in a low voice. "Rong Xiu, you don't have to go in. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from the Love Network." Chapter 2033. Rong Xiu took out a black ruler. The black ruler flashed and an illusory figure appeared in front of Rong Xiu. Compared to before, his figure was much more transparent, and his aura had weakened a lot. It was as if a gust of wind could blow him away. He looked ahead with a heavy expression, his brows knitted. "Senior Diwu." Rong Xiu cupped his fists and bowed. "This trip is dangerous. Let me send you off." Diwu Zhangze shook his head. "No need. You've already sent me here, so there's no need to take any more risks. At this distance I can already find my way back. Besides, it's just an aura. Even if I can't go back, there's no loss. After being sealed in the Blood Heaven realm thousands of years ago, I never thought of coming out again." Rong Xiu's thin lips curled up slightly and he smiled faintly. "You're seriously injured. It'll be good if you can recover with an aura." One had to know that without a physical body, their strength was almost constantly consumed. They could only barely maintain it in the Red Moon Desert. But this time, with the arrival of the dangerous months, the three of them probably wouldn't be in a good situation. Diwu Zhangze still shook his head and looked at him steadily. "Protect you, A fine light flashed in Rong Xiu's deep phoenix eyes. "This is Rong Xiu's duty." Diwu Zhangze was relieved and his expression eased a little. Although the Black Demon Cave has been destroyed, Mo Shichen is not easy to deal with. Rong Xiu knows. "Let's go back." Diwu Zhangze waved his hand, then directly lifted his leg and walked forward. His figure quickly disappeared in the crimson color. Rong Xiu was silent for a moment. The heat wave wrapped in coarse sand came with the wind. He raised his eyebrows slightly and turned to leave. On the other side, Chu Luiyue led everyone through the gate and officially entered the Divine Ruins realm. As soon as they stepped in, abundant energy of heaven and earth rushed over. Everyone was amazed. The Divine Ruins realm is indeed worthy of its reputation. Yes, if I can cultivate in a place like this, it won't take long for me to break through to the high deity realm. Speaking of which, it's all thanks to Princess, Chu Luiyue smiled. These people were indeed very talented, but they were limited by their previous cultivation environment, which was why they were unable to break through to the high god level. Now that he was in the Divine Ruins world, as long as he cultivated well, breaking through would happen sooner or later. She fixed her gaze in front of her, taking in the scene in front of her. In front of him was a continuous mountain range. Towering mountains and precipitous ridges stood tall and straight. At a glance, there were towering trees everywhere, lush and verdant. It seemed to be a deserted place. "I wonder where this place is?" someone asked. Chu Liyue's eyes flickered and he suddenly raised his hand. A scarlet gold flame flew out from her palm. Boom. Following the loud crash, everyone was surprised to see that there was a layer of transparent barrier shaking violently in midair. This mountain range was also tightly covered by a barrier. However, that layer of spirit formation was not stable. After a short moment, a crack appeared. Then with a bang sound the enchantment shattered. Whoosh! In an instant, countless figures flew out from the mountain range. Chu Liwe narrowed her eyes and saw the densely packed figures heading toward them. It's the demonic beasts. Someone in the crowd behind her exclaimed. No. It's the divine beasts. Seven-leaf mystic snake phoenix sky by chi flying snow fox god. The ones at the front were indeed the divine beasts. As for the ones at the back, Chu Liwe glanced at them and found that the lowest level was actually a 9th grade divine beast. Danger. Everyone suddenly became nervous. There were so many demonic beasts, at least 100 of them. If they attacked as a group, then they would not be a match for them. After all, there were divine beasts among them. Chang Wanzhou took a step forward and was about to attack, but he was stopped by Chu Liwe. Wait. Chang Wanzhou looked at her strangely, but saw that not only was she not nervous at all, she was even smiling. It seemed like she had a card up her sleeve for everything in front of her. Chang Wanzhou calmed down and retreated behind her. Those demonic beasts were rapidly approaching. The atmosphere became more and more tense. Everyone unconsciously quieted down and stared at the scene in front of them. Outside the Divine Ruins world, 9th grade demonic beasts were already extremely precious existences, and divine beasts were even rarer. Now that they suddenly saw so many divine beasts attacking, everyone was naturally nervous. However, just when everyone thought that they were about to be surrounded by these demonic beasts, they saw them suddenly stop. At this time they were only a few dozen steps away from Chu Liwe. Then, those demonic beasts all knelt on the ground. Everyone was stunned. What was going on? Why did these demonic beasts seem to be so grateful and respectful to Chu Liwe? These are the demonic beasts raised by the Black Demon Cave. Chu Liwe said softly. Everyone was stunned. Chu Liwe walked forward. The closer she got, the more respectful the demonic beasts were. They all lowered their heads. Chu Liwe finally stopped in front of a blood-red red cloud leopard. This was a female leopard. In its mouth there was a small ball. There were dark red bloodstains that dripped down drop by drop. Chu Liwe squatted down and stretched out her hand. The red cloud leopard subconsciously took a step back and quickly raised its head to look at Chu Liwe with deep respect in its eyes. Chu Liwe was stunned and looked back. Dumpling had actually followed her over at some point in time. At this time, she was curiously staring at the little thing in the red cloud leopard's mouth. Chu Liwe coughed. Dumpling stepped back. What? Dumpling opened her big black grape-like eyes and asked innocently. Chu Liwe held her forehead helplessly. The red cloud leopard is just an ordinary divine beast. You're too close and scared it. Dumpling was an ancient divine beast. Even if she changed into her human form and restrained her aura, the bloodline pressure from her bones couldn't be concealed. The reason why these demonic beasts were so respectful was partly because she opened the barrier and let them out, and partly because Dumpling was here. Dumpling. She curled her lips slightly. I just wanted to take a look. She had clearly tried her best to suppress her aura. Chu Liwe ignored her. As the young master of the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan who had already opened 5 meridians, Dumpling still didn't have the slightest idea of her own identity and strength. Most of the time she was still carefree. But this was fine. Tuanzi was still young, so she should be innocent and pure. Seeing Dumpling step back, the red cloud leopard let go of its mouth. A soft ball landed in Chu Liue's palm. This was a small leopard that looked like it had just been born. However, there was a circle of wounds on its neck. The blood just now dripped from here. Chu Liue frowned. This was left behind by the people of the Black Demon Cave. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 2034. The wound was very deep and dripping with blood. White bones could be vaguely seen. It was obvious that the person who did this was ruthless, not even sparing this newborn little thing. Chu Liue's eyes turned cold as she gently covered the leopard's wound with her palm. A faint reddish gold light flickered. When she raised her hand again, the little thing's wound had already scabbed over, and its aura had recovered significantly. It lay obediently in Chu Liue's palm, turned over, and fell into a deep sleep. Chu Liue and Dumpling had the same life contract, and the energy in her body had a strong restorative effect on these magical beasts. If Dumpling were to do it directly, the bloodline pressure would be too strong, and this little thing might not be able to bear it. Chu Liue did it at the right time. The female leopard was nervous at first, but then showed a grateful expression. Although it was a divine beast, its bloodline was of a low level and had no human status. It knelt on the ground and let out a low whimper. It was gratitude and also submission. Chu Luiyue glanced at it. As expected, she saw the marks on the neck of the red cloud leopard that could only be caused by admonishment. The people of the Black Demon Cave were already dead, but these magical beasts were still alive. It was obvious that it was as she had expected. They did not form contracts with these magical beasts, but only trapped them and used extreme methods to tame them. In this way, the number of magical beasts they could control would greatly exceed the number of people they had. She sent the little thing back. The red cloud leopard carefully stepped forward and picked up the little leopard. It looked up at Chu Luiyue, tears falling from the corners of its eyes. Chu Luiyue's heart skipped a beat, and the corners of her lips curled up slightly. Don't worry, the people of the Black Demon Cave are already dead. From now on, no one will imprison and torture you. Chu Luiyue looked up slightly. At a rough glance, the number of these magical beasts was close to 200. More importantly, there were still magical beasts rushing over from the forest behind. She let out a long sigh and said, "From now on, you should all go your separate ways." The most suitable place for them was naturally the unrestrained wilderness. The world is so big, where can't I go? However, after Chu Luiyue finished saying those words, the magic beasts before him did not move. Chu Luiyue was stunned. He waved his hand again. Go. They still didn't move. You, they want to follow you. Dumpling could not help but interject. Chu Luiyue turned around. Follow me? She was not their master, so why should they follow her? Dumpling's eyes flickered as she said in a clear voice, "Yes. They have been trapped here for a long time. Now that you have rescued them, they are grateful and naturally want to follow you." Speaking of this, she suddenly thought of something and hurriedly ran over. The red string and golden bell on her head jingled, and a pair of white little feet ran very fast. All of the magical beasts took a step back in unison, then lowered their heads in reverence and respect. "Ayu." Dumpling hugged Chu Luiyue's thigh and looked up at him. "Ayu, you can take them back, but you can't contract with them anymore. Ayu can only be mine." After thinking for a while, she bit her finger with some hesitation. "Oh right, and Zichin, then he can only be ours. But Ayu can only love me the most." Chu Luiyue did not know whether to laugh or cry. He pinched her chubby little face. "Don't worry, you alone are enough. How can I have other skills? Besides, other than Zichin, there shouldn't be any other magic beast that can withstand your pressure." Speaking of which, it was really a coincidence. If either Zichin or Dumpling was not strong enough or had a strong enough bloodline, they would not be able to coexist with each other. It wasn't easy for him to get to where he was today. Hearing his promise, Dumpling was relieved. I knew Ayu was the best." Chu Luiyue looked at the magical beasts hesitantly. "Then just let them follow us." Dumpling waved her hand. "It's not like Peach Blossom Cove can't afford to raise them." Chu Luiyue thought to himself. Although the Peach Blossom Cove was rich in resources, there were not many magical beasts, let alone divine beasts. It would be good to bring these magical beasts back. And in this way, Dumpling, will be the real boss in the future. None of the magical beasts dared to disobey her command. Think about it. How awe-inspiring would that be? As long as they followed her, wouldn't her chances of defeating Zichin in the future be greater? At this thought, Dumpling's smile became even brighter, as if she could already imagine the wonderful life in the future. Chu Luiyue was speechless. She rubbed the space between her eyebrows with a headache. Dumpling seemed to have forgotten that she was the young master of the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan, the kind that was personally appointed by the ancestors. As long as she wanted, the entire Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan would follow her lead. They were the most honorable beings in the world. However, seeing that she was so happy, Chu Luiyue could not be bothered to remind her. She would naturally remember in the future. She pondered for a moment and finally nodded. "Then, let's go back together." Hearing this, the magical beast's eyes were filled with joy. Although the pressure on Dumpling's body was too strong, almost making them not dare to approach her. After all, she was a Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix with the purest bloodline. Such a noble existence was naturally attractive to other magical beasts. If they could follow her, it would be a great blessing. Moreover, Chu Luiyue had saved them. Was there a better home than this? Therefore they were very happy about this matter. Therefore, after subduing a group of cultivation geniuses, Chu Luiyue had another group of high-level magical beasts behind her. Looking at the group behind her that had expanded by a lot, Chu Luiyue was a little dazed for a moment. Didn't she just want to see what was going on with the door at Peach Blossom Dock? How long had it been? She actually brought so many people and beasts back for no reason? At this moment, the void not far away suddenly shook. Following this, two figures walked out from it. Chu Luiyue looked back and was slightly shocked. Cini Lin Qifei? Why are you here? Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 2035. The two figures who walked out were none other than Cini and Lin Qifei, who had been separated from her before. Upon seeing Chu Luiyue, the two of them looked at each other and revealed a look of relief. Then the two moved and came to Chu Luiyue and bowed together. Greetings, master. Chu Luiyue raised her hand. No need to be so polite. But, she had just walked out of the door realm and didn't even do much. She had just collected a group of demonic beasts and they had appeared here. This was obviously not a coincidence. After the chaos in the door realm of Peach Blossom Dock, the two of us were separated from Master and His Highness. Since then we have been looking for the two of you. We used some methods and found some clues. Please forgive us for being late, Master. In just a few sentences he left behind all the things that happened in the middle of the story. But Chu Luiyue knew that they must have spent a lot of effort to find her so quickly. She nodded slightly and said, I'm fine. It's good that you're safe. Cini looked around. Your Highness? Actually, when he had just arrived, he had already noticed the situation around him. Master was here, but His Highness wasn't. And there were many more people beside Master. Chang Wanzhou was among them. In addition, there was a large group of demonic beasts with strong auras. The scene was a little chaotic. Even someone as intelligent as him was momentarily unable to understand what had happened. Chu Luiyue explained, he went to the Red Moon Desert and will rush back soon. As for these people, they are all from outside the Divine Ruins world. These demonic beasts were raised here by the Black Demon Cave. Now that the Black Demon Cave has been destroyed, I wanted to let them go, but they wanted to follow me, so I decided to bring them back to Peach Blossom Dock. Everyone, bringing so many divine beasts back for fun? Listen, is this something a human would say? A rare trace of surprise flashed across Cinyi's usually indifferent and calm face. Lin Qifei, who was at the side, could not help but ask in shock, the Black Demon Cave has been destroyed? How could so many things happen in such a short period of time? Chu Luiyue chuckled. It's a long story. Let's go back and talk about it. Do you know where this is? Will it be troublesome to return to Peach Blossom Cove from here? Cini replied. Master, this is Wanfeng Ridge. It's not very famous and is just a small place. There's a long river outside and it's very secluded. Chu Luiyue nodded in understanding. She had never heard of this place before. The Divine Ruins world was vast, so it was impossible for her to know everything. After all, the Black Demon Cave had carefully selected this area, so it was naturally more remote and difficult to find. Chu Luiyue smiled. In that case, it must have been hard for you to find this place so quickly. Cini cupped his fists. After you and His Highness left, the gate realm was sealed. The two of us couldn't follow you. It's all thanks to fourth young Master Lin that we were able to find this place. Chu Luiyue widened her eyes and looked at Lin Qifei in surprise. Oh. Cinyi's words proved that Lin Qifei had really helped. Qifei, you know this place? Lin Qifei shook his head. Lord Cinyi is too kind. Actually, this matter is mainly due to Lord Cinyi's efforts. I merely constructed this transportation formation. Chu Luiyue raised her brows. With Cinyi's ability, constructing a transportation formation was not difficult. In the end, he had asked Lin Qifei to do it? As if seeing her confusion, Cinyi explained. Your appearance here was deduced by fourth young Master Lin based on the changes in power of the Shen formation above the gate realm. I merely lent him a hand. This time Chu Luiyue was truly shocked. Lin Qifei actually had such shocking abilities? This place is indeed some distance from the Peach Blossom Cove. Cinyi added. Chu Luiyue understood. To construct a transportation formation in an unfamiliar place, a mystic master had to know the exact location and personally do it. This was probably why Cinyi had asked Lin Qifei to construct the transportation formation. With Lin Qifei's current strength, it might not be a problem for him to construct a small transportation formation on his own. But to construct a complete and grand transportation formation, he still needed external help. At that time, Cinyi had acted. But in the end, the main credit for this matter still fell on Lin Qifei's shoulders. She looked at Lin Qifei and said sincerely, Cinyi is right. Cinyi is right. This merit is indeed yours. Qifei, you really didn't disappoint me. There were probably only a few people in the entire Divine Ruins who had such ability. Lin Qifei raised his head and looked at her with bright eyes and undisguised respect and admiration on his face. He also revealed a faint smile. His figure was thin and his temperament was like bamboo. His distant eyes were always calm and unperturbed. This smile instantly brightened his complexion. It was like a cool breeze brushing through a bamboo forest, pure and elegant. I can't repay the favor of saving my life. Besides, moreover, from the very beginning she had appreciated him very much. This kind of trust and admiration was hard to find in this lifetime. Lin Qifei cupped his fists. It is Jifei's honor to be of service to Master. Chu Luiyue was also very happy. Since you're all here, let's return to the Peach Blossom Cove first. This would save them a lot of effort in finding the way. Yes. Tini nodded. Shortly after, his gaze turned and landed on Chang Wanzhou. His eyes flickered, seemingly a little surprised. Exalted Goddess? Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 2036. If she remembered correctly, Chang Wanzhou had always been outside the Divine Ruins world. How did he break through to the Exalted God realm? Logically speaking, it shouldn't be. Chang Wanzhou pursed his lips slightly and glanced at Cini without saying anything. Chu Luiyue chuckled. Yes, I'm also quite surprised. I didn't expect little Zhou to break through to the Exalted God realm in such a short time. His aura was hidden very well. If he hadn't shown his true realm in the fight with Mo Shiqian, Chu Luiyue would probably still think that he was at the peak of the 9th stage. However, little Zhou is extremely talented and has a lot of opportunities. It's expected that he can do this. Chu Luiyue said softly. Actually, she knew where Cinyi's doubts came from. She had the same curiosity in her heart. However, she knew very well that Chang Wanzhou's body was indeed different from others. There was a terrifying power sealed in his body. Previously, she had only helped to release a small portion of it, and his strength had increased greatly. He was probably able to break through to the Exalted God realm because of this. When she had time after returning, she would have to ask in detail. Cini nodded and didn't ask further. Master's words make sense. Let's go back now. Chu Luiyue turned around to take a look. These people were still fine, but these magical beasts, there were indeed too many of them. There were at least 400 to 500 of them now. A third of them were divine beasts. Their auras were astonishing. As if seeing her worry, Cini said, Master, don't worry. Although this teleportation array was just created by the two of us, it's extremely stable. It shouldn't be a problem to send everyone back. Hearing this, Chu Luiyue was relieved. Okay. Everyone, including the magical beasts, stepped into the teleportation array one after another. Just as Cini said, although this teleportation array was new, it was very stable. It was still stable even after carrying so many people and magical beasts. In the dark space, a few pearls floated quietly, scattering a faint glow. Chu Luiyue looked at Cini thoughtfully. Sensing her gaze, Cini also looked over. Is there anything Master wants to ask? Chu Luiyue nodded and spoke with some hesitation. Cini, I remember that you are most proficient in Chimenduanjia formations and mechanisms. When did you have such a deep understanding of profound formations? This was not a thing. Cini smiled calmly. That usually indifferent and calm face because of this smile became a bit more lively. Master, Cini is also a cultivator. He wasn't lying when he said he was good at it. But he didn't say that he wasn't good at anything else. He had followed Chu Luiyue for many years, so at this moment Chu Luiyue understood his meaning with just a look and a sentence. She couldn't help but be stunned. Cini wasn't wrong. Thinking about it carefully, wasn't 13 taught by him? The other members of the 13U Guard were also exceptionally respectful towards Cini. In this world where the strong were revered, they definitely wouldn't respect Cini so much just because of seniority. He could only be strong enough. Chu Luiyue stroked her chin. She had always thought that she knew Cini well enough, but now, what she saw was perhaps only the tip of the iceberg. However, Cini's loyalty to her was indisputable. She smiled in relief, her eyes bright. That's true. Then let's spar another day. Cini nodded. Cini awaits Master's instructions. Peach Blossom Cove. After a heavy snowfall, the entire Peach Blossom Cove was covered in silver. However, the peach blossoms outside the city were in full bloom. The pinkish-white petals complemented the snow, making it look like a painting. Yumanor backyard. Sanson was sitting in the room, holding a brush in one hand and checking an account book in front of him. There was a happy smile on his chubby cheeks, and his pair of small eyes had already narrowed into slits in joy. Anyone could see his joy and excitement at this moment. When 13 entered, he happened to see this scene. "Third brother, why are you so happy?" Actually, when he saw the account book in Sanson's hand, 13 had already guessed why he was so happy, but he still asked symbolically. When Sanson heard his voice, he chuckled without even looking up. "Oh, 13 is here? Quick, take a seat. Your third brother, I am settling accounts." As he spoke, he sighed with emotion. Tiske, these aristocratic families and sects are indeed generous. Just the profits of these few days have already surpassed the profits of the past 3 months. Without the oppression of the Black Sword sect, the profits they were making were truly impressive. Although Master had only chosen a few families, they had all come with the intention of befriending them. In addition, the quality of the medicinal herbs and pills in Peach Blossom Cove were indeed excellent, so these people were very generous. Sanson had been so busy recently that his feet barely touched the ground, but he didn't feel tired at all with this account book in hand. 13 asked curiously. "Third brother doesn't use an abacus?" "The abacus is too slow." Sanson finally retracted his gaze and chuckled. "Little 13, don't you know that when your third brother looks at the account book, the bigger the account book, the less I like to use an abacus?" 13 really didn't know. Although he had followed Master for a long time, he had spent most of his time with Tsinyi and the others. Among the 13 new guards, only Sanson had a special fondness for things like calculating accounts and making money. He didn't have much time and opportunities to spend with 13. Moreover, 13 was young in the past, so Sanson wouldn't mention these things in front of him. As for the others, he was simply too lazy to mention them. Therefore, 13 only knew about this matter when he heard it from his own mouth. "Third brother's calculations are that good?" 13 quickly reacted and revealed a look of admiration. Sanson enjoyed this look very much. Actually it's not that good. This thing is innate. He gently stroked the account book in his hand and said with a smile. "Little 13, with these transactions, our you residents will be able to gain a firm foothold in the world of God in the future. If you want anything in the future, just ask third brother." Sanson said these words in a rich and imposing manner. But this was also because he had the confidence. The battle between Chu Luiwei and Yi Wentao could be considered as killing the chicken to warn the monkey, letting everyone know that the Yu residence in the Peach Blossom Dock was not to be trifled with. And these business transactions were also beneficial for them to build a good relationship with the various aristocratic families. More friends meant more paths. Who knew how many people wanted to climb up to the Yu residence? After all, although the Yu residence had just been established, they had many backers behind them. In the current world of God, who would want to provoke them? And to support the establishment and development of such a large aristocratic family, not only did they need enough experts, they also needed enough resources. Sanson had also saved some money previously, but he didn't expect Master to cause such a big commotion. Now that there were so many people in the Peach Blossom Dock, the expenses in all aspects were not small. But fortunately, the future was bright. "Hey 13, why did you think of looking for third brother today?" Only then did 13 react. "All right. I'm here to report to third brother that Master and the others are back." Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 2037. Sanson was delighted. "Why didn't you say so earlier?" He quickly put away the account book in his hand and was about to go out to welcome them. 13 quickly said, "Hey, third brother, wait. Master and the others are at the city gate now." He said there's no need to welcome them. He only asked third brother to arrange some accommodations and find a few suitable mountains. Accommodations? Find mountains? Sanson was stunned. What are they for? 13 scratched his head. "I'm not too sure. I only heard that Master brought some people and magical beasts back." "What?" Sanson didn't expect to get this answer. The corner of his mouth twitched. Some time ago, Big Brother said that there was a problem in the Gate Realm, so Master and His Highness went to take a look. However, something unexpected happened and the two of them disappeared together. For this reason, the eldest brother took Lin Jifei to look for him. Now that they heard that Master was back, they were naturally happy. But why did he bring people and magical beasts back? He thought for a moment and said, "I see. I'll send someone to arrange it." With that, he walked outside. After taking 2 steps, he suddenly thought of something and turned back. That's not right. If the people and magical beasts came together, those magical beasts should be the contracted magical beasts of the human race. There shouldn't be any extra places. Why did Master mean that the people and magical beasts were separated? 13 was confused. I don't know about this. He didn't have time to check it out. He only heard the news and quickly came to find Sanson. After all, Master and Big Brother weren't here. Sanson was the most senior in the 13 guards. And he was familiar enough with this place. He was the most suitable person for this kind of thing. Sanson thought for a moment. Forget it. It's not a big deal. Peach Blossom Cove is so big. It's easy to find a few empty places. Before he could finish his sentence, a loud noise suddenly came from outside. Sanson looked outside curiously. What's going on? Swoosh? There was a sound of something breaking through the air. Sanson's heart skipped a beat. He saw something flying toward him. He immediately mobilized the power in his body and was about to attack. Sanson, don't move. A clear and familiar voice. Master. Sanson quickly restrained his aura when he heard this voice. The next moment that thing pounced over. Sanson was thrown into his arms. He staggered and almost fell down. He hurriedly held onto the door beside him and barely managed to stand still. Only then did he take the time to look down, only to see that there was actually one hanging in front of him. Thunder Tigan? This Thunder Tigan was biting the clothes in front of his chest. Sanson's eyes widened. This hula, the sound of wings flapping could be heard. Sanson subconsciously looked up and saw a black gold divine vulture charging over. Since her master did not allow her to attack, Sanson had no choice but to take out her account book to defend herself. However, as soon as he took it out, the golden crow divine vulture swooped down and snatched it away without a word. Sigh. Slap. Sanson was about to catch up when something suddenly fell from above and hit his head. It was warm and soft. Something seemed to be pulling at his hair. Sanson raised his hand and grabbed the ball. It was only the size of a palm and a red ball. At this moment, it was looking at him innocently and curiously with a pair of black eyes. There was also a ball of Sanson's hair wrapped around its claws. His scalp was aching. Red Cloud Leopard? Sanson's forehead twitched. In just one encounter, the account book was snatched, his clothes were torn, and even his hair was pulled. What was going on? Very good. In the future we will work together like this. Our combat strength will greatly increase. Dumpling's childish voice sounded. Sanson looked up and saw a few figures walking in. The person in front was Chu Luiyue with a helpless look on his face. Next to him was Dumpling with a face full of excitement and fighting spirit. All of you come back first. With that order, the Thunder Tigan in front of Sanson finally let go. The black gold divine vulture circled around and threw down the account book. The two of them quickly retreated and stopped 5 steps away from Dumpling respectfully. Dumpling waved her hand and said with a smile, "There's improvement." Hearing Dumpling's praise, the two beasts were very excited. Even the little red cloud leopard lying in Sanson's palm instantly stood up with its eyes lit up. Sanson was confused. "Master, what is this?" A strange sound was heard. Sanson's voice stopped abruptly. He slowly lowered his head with a stiff face. A pile of fresh excrement was lying quietly in his palm. And the culprit seemed to have realized something at this moment. It turned its head and looked at him pitifully. The scene fell into a strange silence. "That cough, it was injured some time ago. I gave it some medicine, so its metabolism has been quite good recently." The corner of Chu Luiyue's mouth twitched and he said sympathetically. Sanson looked at Chu Luiyue in disbelief. "Master? Master was going to abandon him for such a small thing?" Chu Luiyue bent his finger and gently flicked Dumpling's head. "Why aren't you apologizing to Sanson?" Dumpling went forward obediently. Her 2 small hands were crossed in front of her body. She held her small belly and bent down to apologize. "Brother Sanson, I'm sorry. Dumpling knows she's wrong. I dare to do it again next time. It's rare to find such fun. How can I give up so easily?" It was not easy to get Ayu to agree that she would be in charge of these little guys in the future. Dumpling said silently in her heart. How can ordinary people understand the joy of being the boss? Chu Luiyue silently glanced at her. This little trick, however, Sanson did not know what Dumpling was thinking at this time. It was not a big deal, so he was not really angry. Dumpling was so cute. He felt sorry for her. How could he bear to say anything harsh? "Oh, our Dumpling is the best. No need to apologize, no need to apologize. Brother Sanson just needs to wash his hands. As long as Dumpling is happy." Dumpling immediately stood up, her big eyes sparkling. "I know Brother Sanson is the best." Her words made Sanson so happy that she didn't notice the slyness in Tuanzi's eyes. Chu Luiyue sighed in his heart. Since some people wanted to die, they could not blame her for not helping them. "Shirsan, help your third brother take down the little thing." Chu Luiyue gave Shirsan eye signal. Shersan immediately reacted and went forward to pick up the little red cloud leopard. Sansan, you go and clean it up first, Chu Luiyue said. Sansan came back to his senses and responded. Just as he was about to leave, he pointed at those few and said, "These are all brought back by Master this time?" Chu Luiyue looked at him with sympathy. "No, more than this." Sansan suddenly felt a strong sense of uneasiness. "More than this? Then how many?" Suddenly his eyes narrowed and he gasped. "What are these?" Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 2038. A dark mass had appeared behind Chu Luiyue at some point in time. Countless magical beasts had gathered together, and all of them were looking in this direction. Curiosity, surprise, joy, excitement. Perhaps because of Dumpling's presence, they didn't dare to get too close. They were still huddled together at the back. But it wasn't hard to see that there were indeed a lot of them. Sansan's mouth twitched. "Master, what did you do this time? Why did you bring back so many fiends? And many of them seem to be divine beasts." Chu Luiyue turned around and raised her voice. "What's going on? Didn't I tell you to wait outside?" Hearing her words, the fiends immediately took a step back obediently. But after spending some time together, they had a good understanding of Chu Luiyue and knew that she wasn't really angry. In addition, due to various reasons, they had a natural affinity with Chu Luiyue. Even after hearing her reprimand them, they were still happy and wanted to lean forward. Hence, although the fiends quietened down, they still gathered together and refused to leave. "Master, those people have been arranged." At this moment, Sun walked over. Chu Luiyue nodded. "That's good." There were only a few dozen people in total. There were many empty residences in Peach Blossom Cove, so she could just bring them there. Moreover, they were all quite talented and would be able to adapt quickly after coming here. There was no need to worry too much. The key was these fiends. "Big brother." When Sansan saw Sun, his eyes welled up and he felt wronged. Sun's gaze turned slightly as he glanced at him indifferently. "You're not allowed to take half a step closer until you're done bathing." Sansan was speechless. "Big brother. You're my big brother. Your third brother is being bullied. Not only are you not concerned, but you're also so disdainful." As if sensing Sansan's resentful gaze, Sun glanced at him nobly and narrowed his eyes slightly. "Make a new copy of the account book. Master still has to look at it in the future." Sansan's hands trembled slightly as he held the account book. He finally couldn't help but shout. "My hands are clean." Sun's expression was calm. "Is that so?" Sansan, 13 whispered. "Third brother, why don't you go first? Otherwise, I won't be able to get past Big Brother alone." Sansan was extremely indignant. "The world is so big, but there is no place for me, Sansan." Around the corner, Shifang, who had rushed over when he heard the news, looked delighted. "Hey third brother, you can come to my place. I've just planted some vegetables recently and they need some fertilizer." Scram. Sansan took a deep breath, then used its fastest speed to turn around and leave. Shifang sighed regretfully. "The scarlet cloud leopard is a divine beast. This fertilizer is very precious. Third brother is wasting it like this, Chu Luiyue." "Sun, since Sansan is busy, I'll leave this matter to you. You should be familiar with this place by now." Based on Sun's personality, he should have already begun to fully understand this place when she first chose it. Speaking of which, perhaps even Sansan didn't know as much as Sun. Sun nodded. "Yes." With hundreds of magical beasts arriving at once, it was indeed a little crowded. But fortunately they were very grateful and submissive to their master and Dumpling, so it wasn't troublesome. Under Sun's lead, these magical beasts quickly left. Dumpling wanted to join in the fun, so Chu Luiyue allowed her to follow. The courtyard finally quieted down. Chu Luiyue turned around and saw that 13 was still standing in the same spot. The little scarlet cloud leopard was still lying in his hand. 13? Chu Luiyue walked over. "Master, it seems to have fallen asleep," 13 said nervously. As if he was worried that he would wake the little thing up, he deliberately lowered his voice. Chu Luiyue turned around and saw that the female leopard was indeed still waiting outside the door. She chuckled. "You just have to send it to its mother." 13 nodded and hurriedly walked over. Looking at his back, Chu Luiyue's lips curved slightly. 13 seemed to be about to break through again. "You, A deep and familiar voice sounded. Chu Luiyue glanced sideways. "Taizu? You're back?" Although Taizu usually stayed at the U estate, he had left for a long time because he said that he wanted to refine an origin tool. Taizu chuckled and stroked his beard. Yesterday. I was wondering if I should go look for you, but I didn't expect you to come back today. As he spoke, he looked around. Rongxiu didn't come back with you? Yes, he had some matters to attend to, so he went back to Red Moon Desert first. Chu Luiyue replied. Taizu nodded in understanding. Seeing that Chu Luiyue didn't seem to be injured, he sighed in relief. Where have you been all this time? Chu Luiyue briefly explained what had happened at Black Demon Cave. Taizu was shocked and took a long time to come back to his senses. I see. So, everyone else in Black Demon Cave is dead, and only Mo Shiqian is left? Chu Luiyue's expression froze. This person is cunning and ruthless. He is indeed not easy to deal with. But now that he has lost his physical body, it should be difficult for him to move. Taizu nodded and looked like he wanted to say something. Chu Luiyue was a little puzzled. Taizu, do you have something to say? Taizu hesitated for a while before saying, I plan to leave Peach Blossom Dock for a while. Chu Luiyue was stunned. Where are you going? Taizu's expression was firm as he said, You probably don't know that Tang Ke's tomb has appeared during this period of time. Digression, I only fell asleep at 4 in the morning. I don't know how many times I woke up having nightmares. I'm splitting open. 6 p.m. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 2039. Tang Ke. Chu Luiyue was naturally familiar with this name. He was once the top refiner in the world. No, to be precise, after Tang Ke, there had been no one who could stand shoulder to shoulder with him for thousands of years. Since ancient times he was the strongest one. Of course there was also Mr. Su. It was just that Mr. Su came and went in a hurry. Other than the battle with Tang Ke and the 5 sacred artifacts, there was no other news about him. No one even knew Mr. Su's name, so how could they find a chance to find out? Therefore, in comparison, the world knew more about Tang Ke, and they respected and yearned for him more. Tang Ke's tomb? Didn't they say that he disappeared not long after the battle back then? Why did they suddenly say that his tomb was found? Chu Luiyue was very shocked. Taizu sighed, yes. Back then Tang Ke was a world-shocking talent. How awe-inspiring he was in the entire Divine Ruins world. Unfortunately, after that shocking battle, he didn't make any more movements and disappeared not long after. It was said that even the Tang family didn't know his whereabouts. He didn't appear until the Tang family was in chaos. Since then, everyone finally believed that he should have died. As for when he passed away and where he was buried, no one knew. Not long ago, there was news that someone had found Tang Ke's tomb. Chu Luiyue asked, then, where is his tomb? Rumor has it that it seems to be near Qinggu Slope. Qinggu Slope? Family Wei's territory? Chu Luiyue remembered this place. It was Wei Shiping's family, which was also a famous first-class family in the Divine Ruins world. Taizu nodded. When this news came out, the entire Divine Ruins world was shocked. Now, many refiners should have already planned to go. Chu Luiyue frowned. Will the family Wei's people be willing? After all, that was their place. Moreover, Tang Ke's tomb. Who knew if there were any treasures left by Tang Ke? This was extremely tempting for any cultivator. Taizu put his hands behind his back and chuckled. Of course they won't. But this matter has already spread. How can they do anything about it? Chu Luiyue understood. That was true. After Tang Ke disappeared, the Tang family fell apart. Countless aristocratic families and clans joined forces to hunt for the treasures and inheritances left behind by Tang Ke. Now that Tang Ke's tomb had appeared, who wouldn't be tempted? There were probably a lot of people who wanted to participate in this competition. No matter how powerful the family Wei was, how could they go against the will of the masses? The family Wei's people are quite smart. They know that they can't take it all for themselves, so they decided to compete openly. Half a month later, everyone who wanted to explore Tang Ke's tomb would gather at the Qinggu Slope and act together. At that time, whoever had the ability to open Tang Ke's tomb and obtain the treasures or inheritance left behind would own it. Chu Luiyue chuckled. Family Wei's desire to live is quite strong. In comparison, being open and fair was indeed the best way. No matter how unwilling they were, they could only do so. So this time, I'm going to go there myself. Taizu said seriously. Chu Luiyue looked up. She rarely saw Taizu with such an expression on his face. After all, it was Tang Ke's tomb. Taizu was a refiner. Naturally, he couldn't resist such a temptation. But, won't this trip be too dangerous? Chu Luiyue said thoughtfully. The benefits are tempting. It's hard to guarantee that no one will have any evil ideas. It's inevitable. But how can the path of cultivation always be smooth? Taizu laughed. He was quite open-minded. Girl, you know that I've been in the realm of refiner for too long, but that's because you've been sleeping. No matter what the reason is, this is the reality. Taizu shook his head and interrupted her. Now that you're the lord of the Peach Blossom Dock, you can take charge of things on your own. I can rest assured. This time I really want to go and have a look. Chu Luiyue sighed softly. In fact, she knew what Taizu was thinking. He had been sleeping for 1,000 years. During that long time, only a wisp of his soul was waiting alone. Now that he had finally woken up, he naturally wanted to go to a higher level. Besides, how proud was Taizu back then? Tang Ke's tomb was too tempting for him. Why don't I go with you? The great ancestor laughed, but he refused. Girl, you just came back. Now is the time for you to rest. How can you run around? Besides, there are a lot of things in the Peach Blossom Dock that you need to deal with. He patted Chu Luiyue's arm. Don't worry. Besides me, there are a few people who will go with me this time. Chu Luiyue knew that those who would go with him would be the refiners who had a close relationship with Taizu. She hesitated for a moment and finally nodded. When will you leave? Tomorrow. Chu Luiyue was not surprised. It would take some time to go from the Peach Blossom Dock to the Qinghu Slope. It was just right to leave tomorrow. Then please be careful. Chu Luiyue said seriously. Taizu looked at her and couldn't help but shake his head and smile. Taizu of your family has also traveled in the world of divine ruins. Girl, don't worry. He repeatedly reminded her like he was a child. By the way, Chuning and Shangguan, you should be here in a while. When they came to the Peach Blossom Dock previously, the two of them happened to be at the critical point of breaking through, so they didn't bring them along. Chu Luiyue knew about this. She nodded slightly. The arrival of those people and magical beasts really made the Peach Blossom Dock lively. Especially those magical beasts. Because of the chaotic environment in the Peach Blossom Dock in the past, there were few magical beasts, and even fewer divine beasts. Now that Chu Luiyue suddenly brought back a large group of them, it naturally attracted the attention of the entire city. According to Chu Luiyue's instructions, Cini specially chose a mountain area for them and ordered that no one was to come near and disturb them for a month. After all, they had to recuperate. Chu Luiyue's idea was simple. Once they had all recovered, they would open the mountain area to the public. At that time, if there were cultivators who wanted to contract magical beasts, they could try. If they really had the ability, these magical beasts would naturally be willing to submit. After the crowd heard Chu Luiyue's words, they suppressed the excitement in their hearts and went back to cultivate on their own. In short, the entire Peach Blossom Dock's cultivation atmosphere was in full swing. In the evening, Chu Luiyue once again came to the gate realm. Wu Yao and Yu Jiao were guarding here. Ever since the previous incident, Sun Yi had changed people again. Now, only the 13 Yu guard could take care of this place. The two of them already knew that Chu Luiyue and the others had returned, but they didn't expect her to come here so soon after her return. Master? The two of them looked at each other worriedly. They didn't want the same thing to happen a second time. Chu Luiyue waved her hand. I'm just here to take a look. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 2040. Only then did Wu Yao and Yu Jiao relax. Chu Luiyue took a few steps forward and stood still 3 steps away from the door realm. Her gaze was slightly focused as if she was looking at the door realm, but also as if she was looking at something else through the door realm. She was very sure that she did not see wrongly that day. There was indeed a mirror in this door realm. Rong Xiu's face was reflected in that mirror. But it was a very unfamiliar expression. Moreover, the attire of the person in the mirror was completely different from Rong Xiu's attire at that time. That was obviously not an ordinary mirror. Suddenly, light waves rippled above the door realm. A figure was faintly discernible. Chu Luiyue's eyebrows twitched slightly. Then she saw a face that she could not be more familiar with. That was her face. But there was also a difference. The woman in the mirror had a calm expression, and her eyes were dark and indifferent. But there was a noble aura between her eyebrows that was high and unapproachable. That pair of eyes seemed to be filled with 10,000-year-old frost, wrapped in an eternal chill. Chu Luiyue's heart was in turmoil. However, the expression of the woman in the mirror did not change. It was as if it had been like this since a long, long time ago. This was her, but it was also not her. Master? Master. Wu Yao's voice seemed to come from very far away, finally waking Chu Luiyue up. She came back to her senses, closed her eyes, and then turned to look at the two of them, only to find that they were looking at her nervously. What's wrong? Chu Luiyue frowned slightly. Wu Yao said worriedly. Master, just now, You seem to be engrossed in something. We called you a few times but you didn't hear us. Yes, Master, are you all right? Yu Jiao, who was at the side, also looked worried. Chu Luiyue pinched the space between her eyebrows. I'm fine. Just now. I was just thinking about something and didn't pay attention. Hearing Chu Luiyue's words, the two of them looked at each other. In fact, they were all people who were used to observing people's expressions. Chu Luiyue's state just now was indeed very different. However, upon closer inspection, there was indeed no sign of injury. Maybe I was really in a trance? It's good that Master is fine. Chu Luiyue wanted to leave, but she asked again after taking a step. Have there been any abnormalities in the Gate Realm recently? Master, ever since you and His Highness left this place that day, the aura and power of this door have not changed. However, based on the current situation, it is still impossible to pass through at will. Guard it strictly. Without my permission, no one is allowed to approach the Gate Realm. Chu Luiyue said. The two thought that she was still worried about the accident that happened that day, so they didn't suspect anything and immediately agreed. Yes. Before the problem was solved, they had to be extra careful. Chu Luiyue turned back and glanced at the Gate Realm. The silhouette above had long since disappeared. She pursed her lips and turned to leave. Chu Luiyue returned to the Yu residence and went straight to her room. She sat cross-legged, closed her eyes and began to cultivate. The surrounding energy of heaven and earth continuously flowed into her body. With her current physique and level, she didn't need to spend too much effort on it. Her body would devour the energy and convert it for her own use. Time flew by. In the blink of an eye, dusk covered the sky. There was no moon tonight. A few snowflakes were carried into the room by the cold wind. Chu Luiyue opened her eyes. There was no light in the room and it was dark. However, her eyes were exceptionally bright, like stars in the dark night, shining brightly. At this moment, her brows were slightly furrowed as if she was worried about something. After a while, she stood up and walked to the window. She was about to close the window, but the cold wind blew in her face, instantly waking her up. She held the windowsill with one hand and stood silently. The scene that she saw in the Gate Realm during the day was still deeply engraved in her mind. No matter what, it couldn't be erased. Little boat. She suddenly spoke softly. The surroundings were silent. After a while, a figure quietly appeared in the courtyard. The figure was thin and his hemp clothes were loose. The faint light reflected from the snow fell on his face, and his facial features could be vaguely seen. It was Chang Wanzhou. He had returned to the Yu residence with Chu Luiyue. However, he didn't like crowds, so after he came, he hid himself. Although Chu Luiyue had arranged a place for him to stay, she knew that he should be nearby. As expected, he came out after she shouted, "Little boat, come in and talk." After Chu Luiyue finished speaking, she closed the window, walked over to light the room and then opened the door. Chang Wanzhou walked through the thick snow in the courtyard, but did not leave any trace. Now that he was a great god, it was naturally not difficult for him. He walked into the room and Chu Luiyue was already sitting at the table. "Master." He curtsied. Chu Luiyue didn't ask him to get up as usual. Instead, she poured herself a cup of tea. The tea was cold. "Master, I'll get you a new pot." Chang Wanzhou lowered his head slightly. Even if he didn't look up, he knew what was going on. He had always been very alert. "No need." Chu Luiyue took the teacup in her hand and slowly rubbed it twice. "I don't want to drink it anyway." Chang Wanzhou responded and didn't say anything else. The room was completely silent. After a while, Chu Luiyue asked, "Little boat, when did you become a great god?" Chang Wanzhou said, "Not long ago." "Which day exactly?" 31 days ago. 31 days? After such a long time, you didn't think of coming to the realm of divine ruins to look for me?" Chu Luiyue looked at him and asked calmly. Chang Wanzhou paused. "I did. But it's very troublesome for ordinary people to enter the realm of divine ruins. I heard that after passing the trial in Cloud State City, I could enter the realm of divine ruins. That's why I went there. I didn't expect to meet you and your highness there. Have you been sleeping all this time?" "Yes. When I woke up, I found that I had become a great god. Although it was a long time, it was a good thing to be able to become a great god after waking up." Chu Luiyue raised her eyebrows. "So, you don't know how you became a great god?" "I don't know." Chu Luiyue laughed. "Then you're very lucky." Then she was silent for a while and didn't say anything else. Chang Wanzhou finally couldn't help but look at her. "Master Yu, bang." Chu Luiyue put down the teacup with a sound that was neither loud nor soft. Chang Wanzhou's heart also skipped a beat. Chu Luiyue inched closer, stared into Chang Wanzhou's eyes, and enunciated every word clearly. I remember that you said you went to the Tianling imperial capital to look for an old friend. So, have you found that person? Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 2041. There was silence in the room. Chang Wanzhou looked up and met a pair of dark and bright eyes that seemed to be able to see through everything. His heart was beating violently, as if it was being gripped tightly by something. Cold air spread and engulfed his entire body. A moment later he heard his own voice. Not yet. Chu Luiyue was still staring at him. Really? Really? If that's the case, why don't you look for that person instead of following me? Master once said that you would help me find her. Chang Wanzhou took a deep breath. I can feel that she's in the realm of God. Chu Luiyue laughed. So, you want me to help you find her? Yes. Chu Luiyue stepped back a little. The oppressive aura was instantly reduced by a lot. She stood up and looked down at Chang Wanzhou in front of her. Little Wanzhou, let me ask you again, how did you break through to the exalted God level? Chang Wanzhou was silent for a long time and finally said. I seem to have been to the realm of God a long time ago. In my memory it was also at that time that I broke through to the exalted God level. Chu Luiyue's eyes flickered slightly. A long time ago? When was that? Chang Wanzhou shook his head. I really don't know. Give me your hand. Upon hearing that, Chang Wanzhou didn't hesitate and directly reached his wrist over. Chu Luiyue put 2 fingers on his wrist and injected a stream of force to check the condition of his body. Sure enough, the cold air in his body had dissipated a little. The cold air contained an extremely shocking power. It was also because of this that when he integrated all this power into his own cultivation, he could make rapid progress. If all the cold air in his body was dissipated, it would be terrifying. Chu Luiyue retracted her hand. You can leave first. Chang Wanzhou hesitated for a moment. Master's tea, Chu Luiyue smiled. Don't worry about these small things. I'm going to rest soon. Chang Wanzhou bowed and left. When he left, he even closed the door carefully. Chu Luiyue's fingers tapped on the table. She had a vague guess in her heart, but she wasn't sure, so she called Chang Wanzhou to ask him. Chu Luiyue knew Chang Wanzhou quite well, and he shouldn't have lied just now. But he did not seem to know much about his body. Perhaps there were some things he did not dare to say. With a thought, the shield appeared in front of Chu Luiyue's to appear. She brushed her hand lightly over it. She had never seen the secret text engraved on it before, nor did she recognize it. But why did she still have that notebooks? She of course. If he had caught Mo Shiqian he should have asked him. Yi Wentao had been instigated and incited by him, which was why he had set his mind on the armillary shield. He should be the one who understood this the most. And the music score, and Mo Shiqian obviously valued that music score the most. Otherwise he would not have spent so much effort to snatch it from her. According to what that person said, the music score was divided into 3 parts. Now that she had 2 parts, there was only one left. It was a pity that after such a long time she had gone to many places, but she still did not find any relevant clues. The world of divine ruins was so big that it was like looking for a needle in a haystack to find something. Just as Chu Luiyue was deep in thought, a fluctuation suddenly came from behind her. She was about to move when she smelled a familiar cold fragrance. It's so late. You're still awake? A low and pleasant voice sounded. Chu Luiyue turned around. It was Rongxiu. Her lips curved. You came back so quickly. Rongxiu walked over, and his gaze lightly swept across the armillary shield in front of her. He then went over to hold her hand and leaned over to kiss it. Knowing that you was waiting, I naturally came back as soon as possible. Chu Luiyue glared at him angrily and looked him up and down. How was this trip? Are you hurt? Rongxiu smiled. I'm not hurt, but I miss you very much. I feel that something is missing. Chu Luiyue leaned forward with a faint smile, and her warm breath sprinkled on him. It was ambiguous. My husband has been running around. You should serve you well. Rongxiu's eyes darkened and he held her slender waist with one hand. Chu Luiyue's eyes moved. My husband has worked so hard. You must have a good rest today. Then I won't disturb you. After saying that, she turned around and was about to slip away. Rongxiu raised his eyebrows and pulled her back with a faint smile. You will know soon whether your husband is tired or not. After saying that, he carried her to the bed. Sensing the dangerous aura on him, Chu Luiyue hurriedly said, I still have something to ask. Before she could finish speaking, her back had landed on the soft brocade quilt. Rong Xiu's slender fingers gently took off the hairpin on her head. Her long, silk-like hair fell on his hand. "What's the matter? You can ask tomorrow." Rong Xiu's voice was very low, with a trace of suppressed hoarseness. Seeing that he was about to come over, Chu Liwei hurriedly asked, How is Fifth Elder?" Rong Xiu paused in his actions. He looked like he was careless, but in actual fact, his actions were very light. "I sent Fifth Elder out of the Red Moon Desert and didn't go in with him. Wei Yu has arrived. Fifth Elder insisted on going back by himself, so I didn't insist." Chu Liwei pursed her lips. In fact, this was also within her expectations. Fifth Elder seemed to be very reluctant to let them go now. This time he was forced to let Rong Xiu send him off. "I don't know what's going on with Wei Yu. Even they are so afraid of her," Chu Liwei murmured unconsciously. The rest of the words were quickly swallowed up, leaving only a vague murmur. After a long time, she heard Rong Xiu's deep and hoarse laughter faintly. "What do you want to know? I will help you find out. What do you want to get? I will help you get it. But everything can wait until tomorrow. Besides, you can't take these for free." Chu Liwei originally had a lot on her mind, but after being stirred up by Rong Xiu, she quickly threw those things to the back of her mind. It wasn't until the next day that her waist and legs were sore that she barely pulled her mind back. But at this time her mood was much better than before. There were many things that had to be done slowly. Even if she was anxious now, there was still no way to solve those problems immediately. Instead, it was better to wait and see and be prepared. Looking at it now, there was a lot of fog in front of her, but one day the truth would come to light. Thinking of this, Chu Liwei snuggled into Rong Xiu's arms again. Rong Xiu originally closed his eyes, but when he noticed her movements, he opened his eyes and looked over. His eyes were deep. Chu Liwei hurriedly retreated again. She almost forgot that this man couldn't be provoked early in the morning. Rong Xiu couldn't help but laugh. He stopped teasing her and changed the topic. "I heard that Shengguan Qian was taken to Qinggu Slope by them? Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network." Chapter 2042. Speaking of this, Chu Liui's expression became slightly restrained. Yes. This time, Taizu wanted to keep a low profile, so he had already said that there was no need to send him off and left with the others. Tang Ke's tomb is still very attractive to Taizu. No, it should be said that it was the same for all artificers. In the entire Divine Ruins world, after Tang Ke and Mr. Su, no one else had successfully refined a sacred artifact. Countless people had racked their brains for this, but they had never been able to break through that layer of shackles. Now that the opportunity had come, perhaps Tang Ke's tomb contained the opportunity and secret to refining a sacred artifact. Who wouldn't be tempted? Suddenly, Chu Liwei thought of something and looked at Rong Xiu. I almost forgot that Rong Xiu is also a refiner. Moreover, it was the kind with extremely strong talent and strength. Doesn't he have any thoughts? Then, do you plan to go too? Chu Liwei asked. Rong Xiu shook his head with an indifferent expression. No, I want you to go. Chu Liwei was a little surprised. Why? Although she was also a refiner, she wasn't particularly interested in this aspect. In addition, too many things had happened recently, so she didn't pay attention to this aspect. She didn't expect that Rong Xiu would take the initiative to ask her to go to Tang Ke's tomb. She pondered for a moment and said, My strength and talent as a refiner are not as good as yours. Even if I want to go, you should be more suitable, right? If Rong Xiu went, she might have some confidence. Needless to say, those who went to the Qinggu Slope this time would be the top refiners in the world. Even Taizu said that they might not be able to win, let alone her. The benefits were indeed tempting, but from the beginning she didn't want to get involved in this mess. Rong Xiu's thin scarlet lips curled slightly, revealing a meaningful smile. No one is more suitable than you. Chu Liwei looked at him blankly. Rong Xiu raised his eyebrows. Don't forget that you have 3 saint artifacts. Moreover, they were all made by Mr. Su. Chu Liwei was stunned for a moment. He seemed to have understood something but also seemed to have not. You're saying, maybe we can open Tang Ke's tomb with these sacred artifacts? But that's Tang Ke's tomb, not. Suddenly her voice paused and her eyes were filled with disbelief. Rong Xiu smiled. Back then Tang Ke was at his peak. Although he didn't win that battle, he didn't lose either. It didn't affect his reputation much. However, after that battle Mr. Su disappeared and not long after, Tang Ke also disappeared without a trace. You mean Tang Ke's disappearance at that time may have something to do with Mr. Su? It's just a guess. But Mr. Su is Tang Ke's only opponent, and you have 3 of Mr. Su's sacred weapons. You might have a chance to find something. Rong Xiu's words made Chu Luiyue ponder. She had to admit that these words did make some sense. This guess was not impossible. She didn't think much of it at first, but after hearing Rong Xiu's words she was really moved. After all, it was Tang Ke's tomb. Also, there's something you may not know. Rong Xiu paused. Back then Tang Ke and Mr. Su fought at Peach Blossom Dock. Really? Chu Luiyue was suddenly energized. She looked at him in surprise and disbelief. Very few people know about this because the place where they agreed to fight was very hidden. Other than the 2 of them, no one else knows about it. But at that time, a few top experts noticed that there was movement in Peach Blossom Dock and they guessed. After that battle, the cultivation environment in Peach Blossom Dock changed a lot, so they confirmed their guesses. But at that time, Tang Ke was very famous. Everyone was worried that they would offend him if they leaked the news, so they tacitly kept it a secret. Over the years, some families and clans have been trying to make a move on Peach Blossom Dock, partly because of this. But since they didn't say anything, outsiders didn't know. After all, Peach Blossom Dock itself was very tempting. No wonder. Chu Luiyue looked at the dot diagram in understanding. If that's the case, could the Celestial Shield have something to do with those 2 people? After a long while she finally said, "Then, let's go and take a look." Chu Luiyue made up her mind to go, but she was not in a hurry. For the next 3 days she recuperated in her room and adjusted herself to the best state. After she dealt with all the things in Peach Blossom Dock, she decided to go. Rong Xiu naturally went with her. Yan Qing and Chang Wanzhou went with them. Yan Qing was Rong Xiu's confidant, so there was no problem with her going. The problem was Chang Wanzhou. "Master, do you have other plans for bringing Chang Wanzhou with you?" In the room, Chu Luiyue sat at the head of the table with an account book in front of her. The faint smell of ink wafted over. It was the new account book that Sanson had painstakingly written. She scanned it once and memorized everything clearly in her heart. Sanson was indeed good at calculating and making money. The current income was enough to support the entire Peach Blossom Dock, and there would even be a surplus. She nodded in satisfaction, closed the account book, and looked at Xin Yi in front of her. "Actually, it's not that complicated. Although little Zhou has just become a high god, he is very powerful. You should be able to see that. Besides, he has been following me all this time and he has done well in all aspects." Xin Yi cupped his fists. "Since Master has already thought about it, I will naturally comply." Chu Luiyue paused for a moment and said, I know. Originally you thought that I would send you with me. However, I will probably spend a lot of time on this trip. Peach Blossom Dock cannot be left unattended. After I leave, I will leave everything here to you." Xin Yi's expression became serious. "Don't worry, Master. I will do my best." Chu Luiyue was naturally not worried about Xin Yi. Imperial Father and Father might be coming soon. Also, it's time to gather the remaining people of the 13U. It's not appropriate for them to keep floating outside. At the very least, they should report their arrival first. And these people were the most suitable to be left at Xin Yi. Xin Yi nodded. "I will not let you down. I hope that Master will return safely." Chu Luiyue's red lips curled up slightly. "Of course." Qinghu Slope. In the vast and boundless wilderness, huge rocks were scattered all over the place. From afar they looked like small mountains, tall and straight. Stone forest. Family Way was behind this stone forest. It was rumored that this stone forest was as complicated as a maze, and it was difficult to pass through. Even the members of the Wei clan would always fly from above and would rarely pass through here. However, at this moment, many people had already gathered outside the stone forest, which had always been deserted. And all of them had powerful auras. They were all experts, because it was rumored that Tang Ke's tomb was here. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 2043. Almost all the famous blacksmiths in the Divine Ruins world had already rushed here. Today was the day that the family Wei had agreed to enter the stone forest together. Early in the morning, everyone had already gathered here, waiting for the start. "I heard that Shangguanjing is also here?" "That's right, he's standing in the corner. He's one of the best blacksmiths. With him around, I'm afraid the competition this time will be very intense. Isn't this within our expectations? Other than him, there are also many blacksmiths who haven't appeared for many years. Then doesn't that mean that we don't have any hope at all?" Not necessarily. Until the very last moment, no one would know who would have the last laugh in the end, right? Besides, these people are powerful, but this time we're going to open Tang Ke's tomb. Who here can be on par with them? Since that's the case, whether we win or lose, I think luck is more important. That's true. Everyone was discussing in groups of 3 to 5. Although the family Wei didn't specify the number of people allowed to participate together, most of them tacitly agreed to only select a few people to go together. There were also some who came alone. This kind of thing wasn't completely a competition of strength. No matter how many people came, it didn't mean much. It might be more convenient to travel light. Brother Shangguan, you've disappeared for such a long time. Now that you've come out, you're still the focus of everyone's attention. A few people teased him. Yes. Since we came here, those people haven't stopped talking about you. Brother Shangguan is still popular. If it wasn't for the competition this time, I'm afraid many people would want to come up and make friends with him. Shangguan Jing snorted and said indifferently, "They're not paying attention to me. They're not paying attention to me. They're paying attention to the person behind me." He was very clear about this point. Now, in the entire Divine Ruins world, who hadn't heard of the Peach Blossom Dock? The name of Shangguan Yu had already spread far and wide. She was very famous. As Yu Er's Taizu, he naturally couldn't avoid being noticed. He wasn't the only blacksmiths here, and there were others whose strength was on par with him. The answer to why everyone's attention was solely on him was self-evident. That's not bad either. You, can be considered as basking in the glory of your family's Shangguan Jing did not hide the pride on his face. Of course. Their Yu was naturally the best. Suddenly, a chill came from behind. He frowned and looked back, but everything was normal. Everyone was taken aback. Brother Shangguan, what are you looking at? Shangguan Jing's brows slowly relaxed, but his eyes were still cold. Nothing. Just now, he had clearly sensed a cold gaze staring at him from the dark. Right at this moment, several sounds of air being torn apart sounded out. All kinds of discussions came to a halt as everyone raised their heads and looked over. Someone from the family Wei. Seeing the pattern on the left chest of their clothes, Shangguan Jing immediately recognized them. Sure enough, those people crossed the stone forest and landed in front of everyone. The person at the front was a middle-aged man. He was dressed in a long robe and had an elegant demeanor. "I am the head of family Wei Weizhe. Greetings everyone." Everyone also greeted him politely. After all, this stone forest on the Qinghu slope was the territory of the family Wei, so they still had to give face. Weizhe chuckled and exchanged a few words with everyone. Then he cupped his hands at Shangguan Jing and asked in surprise, Senior Shangguan, didn't Shangguan Yu and Rong Xiu come with you? Digression. 6 o'clock mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 2044. As soon as he said that, the surroundings quietened down. Everyone turned to look at him. Shangguan Yu's name was like thunder to one's ears. Who didn't know about the things that happened in Peach Blossom Dock? Quite a few of them were filled with curiosity about this. Shangguan Jing narrowed his eyes. Weizhe seemed to be a little strange. Why did he ask about Yu and Rong Xiu when there were so many people? Besides, there were already enough people here and most of them were top-notch blacksmiths. It didn't seem to matter if those two people didn't come, right? Shangguan Jing's mind raced, but he didn't show it on his face. He just laughed. Thank you for your concern, family Wei. It's just that Peach Blossom Dock has been busy recently and Yu has a lot of things to deal with. Therefore she can't get away for the time being. Rong Xiu has always liked to accompany her. So, everyone had mixed feelings. Busy with things, a lot of things to deal with, what else could it be? Naturally, it was because they monopolized Peach Blossom Dock that they had these things to do. Wasn't it obvious that they were here to show off? Were they afraid that others didn't know that they were the new owners of Peach Blossom Dock? Every word he said revealed an undisguised sense of pride. The key point was that it was fine if he said this, but he actually helped those two show off their affection? Who in the Divine Ruins world hadn't heard of Rong Xiu's fierce name? In Shangguan Jing's mouth, he became a good man who protected his wife at home. What was this? Weizhe choked and scolded in his heart. The older the ginger, the spicier it was. With just a few words, it made everyone lose their interest and choke them until they couldn't say anything. Since he had said so, how could others continue? Weizhe's lips moved and he laughed. I see. Senior Shangguan, don't misunderstand. I've heard of your name for a long time and want to meet these two. Let's not talk about Rong Xiu first. You is now the owner of you and will have to interact with all of you in the future. If the family Wei wants to meet her, there will naturally be a chance. Shangguan Jing interrupted him with a smile. Wei Zai's chest felt stuffy. What he meant was that Chu Luiyue would be on the same level as these family heads in the future. And not just anyone could meet her. Haha, Senior Shangguan Jing. Shangguan Jing's seniority here was very high, so even Wei Zai had to be polite to him. After exchanging blows, Wei Zai didn't manage to get the answer he wanted to ask. Thus he didn't continue. Instead he turned to the crowd and changed the topic. We're all smart people, so let's not beat around the bush. Today, everyone is here for Senior Tang Ku's tomb. Senior Tang Ku was a peerless top-notch weapon refiner. Ever since he went missing there had been no news of him. Now he had finally found his tomb. Shangguan don't believe him. He's just making it sound nice. An old man lowered his voice and said disdainfully, I heard that the family Wei was very excited when they found Tang Ku's tomb hidden here. However, they tried all kinds of methods but failed to open it. Instead, they suffered heavy casualties. In addition, the news was leaked, so they started to ask everyone to work together. Shangguan Jing's mouth twitched. That's expected. Everyone present was smart. No one took Wei Zai's words to heart. They just listened. To be fair, anyone who was involved in this matter would probably make the same choice. Who wouldn't want to monopolize such a good thing? The family Wei couldn't keep it a secret anymore, so they took a step back. In fact, there was nothing wrong with that. As Shangguan Jing spoke, he stared at Wei Zai again. That gaze just now didn't seem to come from Wei Zai, but Wei Zai was clearly targeting them. It was really strange. Wei Zai glanced at the sky and said, I won't say anything else so as not to waste everyone's time. To tell you the truth, this stone chaos forest is extremely dangerous. Even my Wei clan members rarely enter it. After entering, please be careful. After he finished speaking, he turned around and looked at the stone forest. Ever since they found out that Tang Ku's tomb was here, the family Wei had sent many people. Some died, some were injured, but they couldn't find any useful information. With so many people here this time, they didn't know if there would be any progress. Wei Zai gritted his teeth. Everyone please. With that, he took the lead and walked forward. The few members of the Wei family behind him also walked in. The rest of the people also moved one after another, their figures gradually disappearing into the stone forest. After entering the stone forest, everyone followed behind Wei Zai and the others. The stones here were grayish-white, strangely shaped, and very majestic. It was quiet all around, and only the sound of everyone's footsteps could be heard. As Shangguan Jing and the others walked, they carefully observed their surroundings. Soon, someone noticed that something was wrong. Did you notice that these stones seem to be moving? Someone asked in surprise. As soon as he said that, many people immediately agreed. You noticed it too? I thought I was the only one who thought so. So everyone is the same? The stones outside are constantly changing, so it's impossible to tell where we are. Such an environment is almost like a maze. If we enter the depths and want to leave, I'm afraid it will be much more troublesome. Hearing these discussions, Wei Zai laughed and said, Everyone, don't be nervous. Everyone, there's no need to be nervous. This has been the case since the day the stone forest appeared. It can be called an illusion or a maze. In short, it will indeed cause some trouble. However, everyone is powerful. If you want to leave, you can leave directly from above. As he spoke, he raised his hand and pointed. Above them, a long rainbow bridge stretched across. They had just passed by from above. Hearing this, everyone heaved a sigh of relief. However, Shangguan Jing frowned slightly, and an inexplicable sense of uneasiness arose in his heart. If they could really evacuate quickly, why would the family Wei suffer so many casualties? They must have suffered a loss, which was why they were willing to let others come. However, after the group traveled for about an hour, nothing unexpected happened. Shangguan Jing suppressed his worry and followed the crowd with a calm expression. Finally, Wei Zai stopped in front. Shangguan Jing stared ahead. This was a rare piece of empty land, and there was only a huge rock placed in the middle of it. The shape of the huge rock was irregular and it was completely red. The most eye-catching thing was that there was a bronze door ring in the middle. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 2045. Shangguan Jing took a closer look at it. The bronze doorknob was exquisitely crafted and thick. Although there was a layer of bronze rust on it, one could vaguely see that it used to be engraved with fine lines. How could there be such a door knocker on a perfectly good piece of rock? Wei Zhe pointed at the bronze doorknob and said, "You've all seen it. As you can see, this stone is quite different from the other stones in the stone forest. We think it's very likely that it's a door. It's very likely that it's the door to Tang Ke's tomb." There was a commotion in the crowd. Obviously, Wei Zhe's words had shaken them. This guess was not impossible. Although this blood-red boulder looked very strange and didn't look like a door, the bronze doorknob on it was even stranger. It made people think more about it. Wei Clan's head, "May I ask if you've already attempted to enter?" someone asked. Wei Zhe's face darkened and he nodded. "To be honest, we've tried many methods but we still can't open it. Moreover, there's a layer of extremely powerful restriction on the bronze doorknob. Once we get close to it, it will trigger a terrifying attack. Because of this, family Wei suffered a great loss. They had no experience at that time. How could they have known that a small doorknob would be so dangerous?" Many people looked at each other when they heard what he said. "It's just a doorknob. How could it be so dangerous?" At least for now, there was nothing special about it. There was not even the slightest fluctuation on it. Hearing this, Wei Zhe curled the corners of his mouth without a smile. "That's all I, Wei Zhe, have to say. If anyone doesn't believe me, you can come forward and verify it yourself." After saying that, he walked to the side and gave up his position. It seemed that he was really waiting for someone to go over and try it himself. After a short period of silence, a man finally came forward. "Ah, Family Wei's words really make people curious. This old man wants to see just how powerful this thing is." This was an old man with a face full of vicissitudes. However, his eyes were extremely bright, flickering with a shrewd and powerful light. Sheng Guanjing did not know this person, but judging from the aura around him, he should be a weapon-refining venerable. Wei Zhe chuckled. "Please." The crowd's gazes all landed on the old man. He headed towards the blood-red boulder. After taking a step forward, he finally stopped. They were already so close, but nothing happened. He chuckled. Could it be that this old man and Senior Tang Ku are fated? As he spoke, he stretched out his hand and pulled the bronze door knocker. Bang! A terrifying explosion suddenly rang out. At the same time, a red flame appeared out of nowhere and wrapped around the old man's body. There was a short scream of fear, but it quickly stopped. The old man's body began to disappear under the flames at a speed visible to the naked eye. Before anyone could react, the ball of flame disappeared without a trace. As for the old man, he had completely died. Other than a few drops of blood on the ground, there was no trace of him at all. There was still a burning smell in the air and it was very pungent. Wei Zhe sneered in his heart and quickly scanned the surroundings. Almost everyone was deeply shocked by this scene and could not recover for a long time. A weapon-refining venerable died just like that. My family Wei has suffered a lot, but none of you took it seriously before? Wei Zhe shook his head, and there was a hint of regret and pain on his face. Now do you believe what I said just now? Dead silence. Everyone looked at the bronze door knocker again. Their eyes had changed from the initial curiosity and excitement to deep suspicion and shock. What is this? At the same time, the void outside the stone forest fluctuated. Then a red scroll appeared. A few figures walked out of it. It was Chu Luiyue and Rong Xiu's group. Chu Luiyue raised her wrist, and the scroll quickly flew back into her hand. This flowing cloud flying map is really useful. She smiled and raised her eyebrows. Although they set off a few days later, their speed was extremely fast. Rong Xiu surveyed the surroundings and said, "You're right. They should have already gone in. But it seems that it hasn't been long." Chu Luiyue looked at it seriously and then nodded slightly. She also sensed that there seemed to be Taizu's aura here. Tang Ke's tomb is inside? She put away the flowing cloud-flying map and looked at the stone forest in front of her. There was no barrier outside and it seemed that one could enter at will? This is family Wei's territory, and they didn't send anyone to guard it? Chu Luiyue was a little surprised. Rong Xiu's lips curled slightly. There is only one possibility for this. There is no need for anyone to guard this place. Even if there is someone guarding this place, it is useless and meaningless. It was very likely that Tang Ke's tomb was hidden here, and it could be considered an extremely precious treasure land. The Wei clan wouldn't be so magnanimous as to ignore this place. Rong Xiu's words made a lot of sense. Chu Luiyue nodded. Then let's go in and take a look. With that, she walked straight forward. Just as she walked to the edge, she suddenly stopped. Rong Xiu asked, "What's wrong?" Chu Luiyue looked sideways at him. Rong Xiu, did you hear anything just now? Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 2046. Rong Xiao narrowed his eyes. You mean, the sound that came from inside? Chu Luiyue nodded. It seemed that he heard it too. It sounded like something exploded, she murmured, but she was a little uncertain. Perhaps there were people fighting. After all, everyone who entered this stone forest was aiming for Tang Ke's tomb. They were competitors, so it was normal for them to fight with each other. Rong Xiao glanced inside. Standing here, he could only see the huge rocks but not the scenery inside. No one could say for sure what had happened. We'll know when we go in, Rong Xiao said. Chu Luiyue nodded. Then let's go in too. As she said that, she was about to go forward. Wait. Rong Xiao suddenly called out to her, then walked forward and held her hand. The stone forest is full of danger and it's easy to get lost. Be careful. The warmth of the iron came from his broad and strong palm. Chu Luiyue felt a little relieved, and the corners of her lips curled up. As she said that, she moved her wrist and Scarlet Heaven Sword appeared in her hand. This way we should be able to find Taizu and the others faster. Scarlet Heaven Sword had inherited the soul of the Dragon Abyss Sword, so it had a subtle connection with Taizu. With this, it would be easy for Chu Luiyue to find Taizu's traces. This was also a major reason why she felt calm. After that, they all stepped into the stone forest and quickly disappeared. After walking for a while, Chu Luiyue and the others noticed the problem. This chaotic stone forest is just like what the rumors say. It is as complicated as a maze. Chu Luiyue looked around and murmured. If it weren't for Scarlet Heaven Sword, they would have wasted a lot of time here. If Tang Ke's tomb is really here, then why did he choose this place? Chu Luiyue couldn't figure it out. Although the heaven and earth energy here was abundant, it was not the best. At the very least, it couldn't compare to the Yintian Tower. As for the environment, there were only a few giant rocks around. Other than that, there was nothing else. He really couldn't see anything special about it. This tomb might not have been chosen by him. Rong Xiao said calmly, after all, until now no one knows how he died. Chu Luiyue blinked and nodded in agreement. That's true. When the Tang clan was exterminated, he didn't even appear. Either he was already dead at that time or he was as good as dead. If he had calmly faced death himself, logically speaking, it would have been impossible for him to not know about the Tang clan. Thinking about it, Tang Ke's death was more likely to be an accident. Bang! Another strange explosion could be heard coming from the front. Chu Luiyue and Rong Xiao stopped at the same time and looked at each other. Compared to the previous time, the sound this time was clearly much closer, and the air seemed to be exuding a faint smell of blood. Something really happened. And the location of the incident should not be far from them. Taizu and the others should be over there. Chu Luiyue's eyes sharpened. Just as he was about to move, he was suddenly stopped by Rong Xiao. Wait first. He lowered his voice, frowned slightly, and looked forward. Chu Luiyue immediately held his breath and followed his line of sight. Yan Qing and Chang Wanzhou reacted extremely quickly. The moment Rong Xiao gave the order, they immediately concealed their figures and auras. Although this place was flat and spacious, there were a lot of giant rocks, which made it very convenient for hiding. What's wrong? Is there something wrong? Chu Luiyue asked in a low voice. As soon as he finished speaking, a biting cold aura suddenly attacked. Chi-boom. A giant rock not far in front of them seemed to have been hit by some force, making a loud noise and shaking slightly at the same time. Then there was a muffled groan. Dark red blood slowly flowed from the ground behind the rock. Chu Luiyue's pupils suddenly contracted. The person who hit the giant rock just now seemed to be a person. That should be a high god powerhouse. Rong Xiao's voice was very soft. A high god powerhouse might not be a big deal in the Divine Ruins world. However, one had to know that almost all the people who came here today were top-notch craftsmen. Most of them might be mediocre in martial arts cultivation, but they were definitely outstanding in crafting. A powerful blacksmith was more valuable than dozens of high gods, or even Her Eminence. Now that he had died, it was obviously a great loss. What's going on over there? Why didn't I hear any sounds of fighting? Chu Luiyue's brows were tightly knitted. She carefully observed everything around her, but she did not find anything unusual. That person seemed to have suddenly flown over, hit the rock, and died on the spot. However, the incident itself was very strange. Even an ordinary high god powerhouse would not die so easily after being hit like this. However, that person didn't even have the time to let out a groan before he died. Wasn't this a little too fast? Could it be that he was already dead? No. When he flew over, he still had his aura. Rong Xiao denied Chu Luiyue's guess. His strength level was higher than Chu Luiyue's, so his observation of the situation was more detailed than hers. Hearing his words, Chu Liyue's doubts deepened. This person's death was too strange. Suddenly, Rong Xiu grabbed her waist and pulled her into his arms. "Come with me." He changed his direction and took a detour from another path. Yin Qing and Chang Wanzhou followed closely behind. After going around a few corners, they finally stopped. Chu Liyue was about to speak when she suddenly heard a man's voice not far away. "Everyone, if we can't think of a way to get out of here, we're all going to die here." The voice was low and cold, as if he was suppressing his anger. Chapter 2047. Chu Liyue felt a little relieved when he heard Taizu's voice, which was full of vigor and seemed to be safe and sound. Judging from their words, they should have encountered some trouble and suffered many casualties. "Humph, Senior Shangwan, it's easy for you to say. We have been here for such a long time and have used all our means. But Tang Ke's tomb still doesn't show any signs of opening. What should we do?" An impatient man's voice sounded with a hint of sarcasm. "You are a great senior. Back then you were already all-powerful. Now that 1,000 years have passed, your strength must have improved again. Why don't you think of a way? I believe that Senior Shangwan won't let us down." Chu Liyue's eyes turned cold. There was a hint of coercion in his voice. But from the looks of it, Tang Ke's tomb seemed to be nearby? Shangwan Jing laughed and said unhurriedly, "You really think too highly of me. I just barely managed to keep my life. How can an old man like me be compared to all of you in your prime?" The man continued to be aggressive. "Senior Shangwan, why are you so modest? Who doesn't know that you fought the 9 dragons alone and still didn't lose? Moreover, your junior Shangwan Yu is now the lord of the Peach Blossom Dock. Senior Shangwan should be much better than us to be able to cultivate in a place like the Peach Blossom Dock, right? You haven't tried to make a move since you came here today. Could it be that you don't even care about Tang Ke's tomb now that you have the Peach Blossom Dock?" These words were really making people hate him. How many people in the world of divine ruins coveted the Peach Blossom Dock? Now that the Peach Blossom Dock had fallen into Chu Liyue's hands, although the people didn't dare to have any thoughts about the Peach Blossom Dock because of Yi Wentao's miserable end, it was inevitable that they were jealous. It was fine if he didn't mention it, but now that he mentioned it, it really poked a lot of people's sore spots. Shangwan Jing looked at the person who spoke with a smile. "What are you talking about? If I wasn't interested in Tang Ke's tomb, why would I spend so much effort to come here today? The reason why I didn't make a move is that I'm afraid of death. It's not so complicated." As soon as he said this, everyone quieted down. The field fell into a strange silence. Although everyone understood this, with Shangwan Jing's status, how could he say it out loud without any hesitation? Didn't he feel embarrassed? He said it so bluntly that it made it difficult for others to respond. He had personally admitted that he was afraid of death. If he continued to ask, wasn't that the same as forcing him to die? Not many people would dare to do such a thing. Shangwan Jing ignored the various gazes of the people around him. He stroked his beard and sighed. "Sigh, there's something you don't know. Even though I was barely able to preserve my life all those years ago, my divine body was unconscious, and my soul had dispersed. If it wasn't for my Yuer's help, I would have really been unable to wake up." How could he still chat and laugh with everyone here? Therefore this old man cherishes his life very much, very much. Everyone was speechless. What else could the bystanders say when the words had already been said? He had already died once and he didn't want to lose his life again. There was nothing to be responsible for. After a long while, the provocative man sneered and said indifferently, "In that case, I'm afraid you have no fate with the supreme treasure and inheritance left behind by Senior Tang Ke." Shangwan Jing was still smiling. "It's fine. It's fine. I'm just here to join in the fun today. Speaking of which, the new generation excels the old. Since everyone is so powerful, you will definitely be able to successfully open Tang Ke's tomb. At that time, if I can witness it with my own eyes, I will be satisfied." His words made the other party lose his temper. Just here to join in the fun? Who would believe that? However, everyone who came here had a certain level of ambition. However, Shangwan Jing was a complete old fox. Facing these, he didn't take the bait at all. Rong Xiu smiled slightly and glanced at Chu Liyue. "Your temper is really similar to Senior Shangwan's." Chu Liyue rubbed his nose and snorted, but the corners of his mouth couldn't help but curl up. Of course. Sometimes one had to be thick-skinned. One had to be more flexible. One would rather trick others than be tricked by others. Wei Zhe looked left and right and finally came out to be the peacemaker. Senior Shangwan's words make sense. The most important thing now is to think of a way to open Tang Ke's tomb. It's not a good idea to keep wasting time here. Since we can't leave then. If we join forces now, we might have a chance of survival. His words quickly gained the approval of the crowd. Wei Clan head, no matter what, this stone forest is still your Wei Clan's territory. Could it be that you really don't have any countermeasures? Someone asked. Wei Zhe wanted to say something but stopped. This pause immediately attracted everyone's attention. Actually, it can't be considered a proper method. It's just a guess. As he spoke, he pointed at the blood-red boulder. Senior Tang Ke is the top blacksmith in the world. If we try to enter his tomb rashly, it will definitely be very difficult to succeed. In my opinion, the best way to open a blacksmith's tomb is probably Tianlei as a guide. There might be a glimmer of hope. Tianlei? Everyone was stunned for a moment before they fell into deep thought. Come to think of it, Wei Zhe's words don't seem unreasonable. Since there's no other way for the time being, why don't we give it a try? Someone quickly made up his mind. Then the rest of the people agreed one after another. Wei Zhe cupped his fist. In that case, I'll give it a try first. What do you all think? No one objected. If this method could open that door, then Wei Zhe would be the first person to enter Tang Ke's tomb. There was no need to talk about the benefits. This was also the main reason why the previous batch of people had tried it one after another. With the benefits in front of them, they couldn't help but be tempted. However, after a series of setbacks, everyone realized that it was extremely dangerous to take the lead. Furthermore, they would basically die and have their souls destroyed. They wouldn't even have the chance to escape. Everyone couldn't help but be wary. No matter how tempting the temptation ahead was, they had to be alive to enjoy it, right? Wei Zhe was the head of the family Wei. It was undoubtedly the most appropriate for him to speak. Head of the family Wei, please? Wei Zhe nodded and walked to the blood-red boulder. He was 3 steps away from the bronze door ring. His expression was solemn and his brows furrowed. It was impossible for him not to be nervous. However, he had a plan in mind. Then, a halberd appeared in his hand. It was black and green and extremely sharp. Everyone's expression changed when they saw the halberd. 10,000 Peaks halberd? The reason why they were so shocked was because this was a sacred artifact. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from the Love Network. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.